Okay, that's us at 10 o'clock now. Just remind members that this meeting will be recorded. Now ask if Christy, if you call for the session and intimate apologies.
Thanks very much, Chair. So just quickly go through the student. So Councillor Douglas Reid.
Here.
Councillor Jim McMahon.
Here.
Councillor John McGee.
Here.
Councillor Tom Cook.
Here. Here.
Councillor Ian Linton.
Here. Here.
Councillor Fiona Campbell. Here, thanks. Councillor Claire Maitland.
Here. Here.
Councillor Claire Leach.
Here. Here.
Councillor Neil McGee.
Here. Here.
Councillor Jim Roberts.
I've just heard Jim Roberts, he's having to attend something this morning, but he's going to log on as soon as he can if he's back in time.
Great, thanks, Councillor Leach. Councillor Jackie Todd.
Yeah.
Do we have Shaheen Mirza?
Yeah.
Thank you. Babs Mowat. Babs, I think, yeah, I can definitely see you on screen. Reverend Dr. Alan Vint.
Yep, here, thanks.
Thank you. I have an apology from Ian Pettigrew, and Jackie Livingston will be joining a bit later this morning. Thanks, Chair.
Just hope the last minute penalty last night against Ayr United didn't impact too much on Jim Roberts, and he can maybe be with us later. Okay, going to declarations of interest first of all. Is there any that? I think centre stage is in here, and I'm on the board of that. I'm trying to think. Celebrate Kilmarnock as well for me.
Councillor Maitland's got a hand up.
Claire, Councillor Maitland.
Same as you, Dougie, and Leisure Trust. Thanks.
Leisure Trust for me as well, Dougie Ian.
The Leisure Trust. Neil, Jackie as well. Okay. And there's us. Okay, we're now going to service improvement plans, and first of all, Ian Tuff.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, members. And so the covering report just sets out for members the 5 service improvement plans that are before you today. I'll cover the first one just after some introductory comments on the covering report. So these are the remaining service improvement plans. Members will recall that the August meeting of Cabinet, you had received the other tranche of service improvement plans. They're very much part of our performance improvement framework, and we had covered a lot of that when we presented these the last time. So if you're okay with that, Chair, just by way of introductory comments, I'll move on to the corporate support service improvement plan, which is my own. Clearly, as part of the management review that a council approved back in June as well, they created the new corporate support service, and that really brought together the policy planning performance team with aspects of transformation. And when I got onto that improvement action plan, which starts appearing at page 21, I'll touch on some of the priorities that we have now going forward. But firstly, just as I look back, and in addition to the support for the pandemic response, recovery and renewal that we clearly contributed to, along with other services, the highlights for us in the last year were really having the review of the community plan concluded, and having then presented to Council a new community plan review supplement, a new local outcomes improvement plan, new strategic priorities that we share with our partners, and new thematic delivery plans. So in the last year, that was an intensive bit of work, and we're really pleased that we were able to get that approved by Council, by partners, and that sets us up nicely for the next 3 years with those strategic priorities now in place. So more importantly, I think now, though, for these service improvement plans is that look forward, and for ourselves, as I mentioned, the creation of this new service of corporate support, one of the priorities, therefore, an immediate priority is to look at that new service, to undertake a service review and a transformational redesign of that service, and importantly, to introduce a new project management office function, which was very much a recommendation that, again, that members approved back in June as part of the management review to create that rigour, discipline, that resource to support future transformational work going forward. So we've set that out in the action plan. That's the immediate action for myself and my colleagues to take forward over the next couple of months. So page 28 of your papers, and it's number 6 in that action plan, then you'll see that recorded there and some of the related actions that we've got for that. In addition, of course, though, we still continue to take forward the Council's best value framework, and the best value service review process is very much part of that as well. And at action number 12 on page 28, you'll see as well that we will continue to focus. We will continue to focus on our performance management improvement framework, which these service improvement plans are part of, but you will see coming forward in the next while the proposals around a new council-wide strategic self-assessment, further best value service reviews, the new approach we have to service level self-assessment, and our public reporting responsibilities, whether that's SPIs or through our LOIP. And lastly, the only other point I'd like to just highlight, Chair, is our continuing attention that we're giving to embedding equalities agenda throughout the Council and throughout the work that we do, whether that's transformation or best value, and linking with the Fairer Scotland duty. So we've included in our service plan our ambitions and our objectives around about the equality agenda, along with everything else that we have. It covers a lot of ground, and before I pass on to the next colleague to present their own service improvement plan, I'm happy to take any questions on my own. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Ian. Do you have any questions for Ian and his paper there? No, don't see any hand up. Thanks, Ian.
No, thanks, Chair. And then following me then is David McDowell on economic growth. Thanks.
Thanks, Ian. Chair, following the review of the Council's management structure approved by Council, the Economic Growth Service was formed from the split of the existing planning and economic development portfolio, with the Chief Governance Officer assuming responsibility for regulatory functions including environmental health, trading standards, development management and building standards, with pages 36 through to 37 setting out the new portfolio comprising development planning and regeneration, economic development and Ayrshire Road Deal. The work to transfer the regulatory functions was completed last month with a commencement date of 6th of September to deliver our new service portfolios. The strategic service focus will be on the delivery of the new economic and service delivery plan, including the 3 strategic priorities, all of which will be positively impacted by the activity undertaken by the Economic Growth Service. These new shared high-level strategic priorities articulate the Partnership's commitment to a full realisation of the Ayrshire Road Deal, the Caring for Ayrshire Transformational Change Programme, and as we recover from the pandemic, the transition to a greener and more sustainable future in line with our climate strategy, all of which are integrated with the Service Improvement Plan. The Economic Growth Service comprised 76 staff, with 47 permanent and 29 temporary, supported through external funding. 21% of the workforce are over 55, and as part of the service review, succession planning will continue to be a high priority to ensure a consistently high service delivery is maintained. Pages 42 to 52 sets out the strategic content of the community plan and the overarching objectives that the service will deliver, and at the core will be the evolving regional economic strategy, which will be aligned with both the just transition to a net zero economy and the Scottish Government's 10-year economic transformation strategy. Pages 57 to 66 highlights our actions during the pandemic, and while service delivery was based on a hybrid model with the majority of staff working from home, there has been a significant progress during the financial year in the delivery of the Ayrshire Growth Deal, while frontline services maintain their business objectives and at the same time manage additional duties such as the rollout of the emergency business grant funding during the pandemic. Pages 67 to 69 sets out the key actions for this financial year, which focus on, as lead authority, maintaining the strategic priorities for the Ayrshire Growth Deal, the delivery of the Ayrshire Growth Deal projects, service redesign to ensure we adapt to the ongoing economic challenges, developing community wealth building in all the work that we do, the review of the regional economic strategy, delivery of the 6 regional economic partnership sector action plans. We want to facilitate inward investment submission of the council's, submission of the local development plan 2 to the council for determination by January next year, and developing and facilitating the delivery of regeneration opportunities. Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much, David. Can I maybe just kick things off? Just a wee question. In terms of, I know we've changed in terms of economic growth and we've separated that from planning, but as you say here on page 36, in terms of development plan and regeneration, we're continuing to make making plans for all the East Ayrshire communities. Obviously, I think there's an issue that in terms of placemaking for the largest town, Kilmarnock, we've got placemaking plans in operation for some of the communities within the wider Kilmarnock area, and I think it's really important that the placemaking scheme from Kilmarnock looks at Kilmarnock Town Centre and the wider communities that surround it. So, is there some attention being drawn? I think that needs to be a focus in terms of economic growth. That needs to have some kind of priority in the months to come. Can I ask what kind of work's taking place in terms of that?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Through the work of for all the communities, we're looking at the various options to take forward community-led action plans. Some of those action plans are obviously well advanced. Some are actually approved and have been cabinet. And with Kilmarnock, the reference to Kilmarnock, we are obviously working a town centre strategy. That town centre strategy will have a local plan inserted in that will be a placemaking plan as well. The regeneration strategy will also identify all the key sites within the town centre, right, running through from all the key buildings right through to the key opportunities as we move forward. So there will be an integral part of that, and that local development plan assessment will also include the outlying communities, so that there's integration between the other parts of Kilmarnock and wider afield with the town centre. Does that answer your question, Chair?
I think it's important that these placemaking plans aren't done in isolation from what's in the town centre, and mutually. They were not doing a town centre regeneration plan that doesn't take into consideration the communities that surround it. So I think there's got to be a wee bit kind of harmonisation and maybe thinking a wee bit differently from Kilmarnock because of the scale of it than other communities. I think that's quite a priority for us. Kim, did you want to jump?
Chair, in terms of these plans, absolutely they need to dovetail, and we will seek to explore how we can connect that in and make it wider. Working with our local communities, I think it is important, and we do work closely in terms of the place plans already, in terms of community-led action plans. So yeah, I think there is something there that we need to build upon, linking in with the work in terms of our town centres. So there is a need for us to make sure that that's absolutely seamless, and I think there's what we can continue there.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, a couple of hands up. Who's first? Neil McGee's first. Then Jackie, then Tom.
Thanks, Chair, if I can get my people going. Just a brief one on page 39 for the moment, Chair. The ethnic origins group, just a query as to the numbers in terms of number one for ethnic, for the ethnic group. I'm just wondering if that's the demographics of the area or if there's another reason for just one ethnic representative, or if I'm reading it wrong, please. Right.
Through you, Chair, I didn't quite catch the question.
Sorry, David. Page 39, the bottom table, there's a figure of one ethnic person represented on development planning and regeneration. I'm just wondering if that's figures for the council or if it's a demographic issue with ethnic people, or just to get some reason behind it, or clarity for that matter. Point. That helps. It doesn't.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to pick that because it's figures that appear in all of the service improvement plans, Chair. That's the breakdown of the workforce within that part of the council, and we split it by ethnicity as well within that workforce. So it's the workforce within that economic growth service. Councillor McGee.
Okay, that is, so what area we take that in a different group?
Yeah, you're not very clear, Neil. Maybe.
I know it's breaking off, okay, sorry. Does that mean it will vary within each department represented? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Okay. Thanks, Neil. Jackie Todd, Jackie.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I ask page 47, where we talk about the 6 pillars for harnessing existing resources, and we're going to say what they are: procurement, fair employment, land assets, financial power, plural ownership of the economy. Could you explain that to me a wee bit, please, and what we mean by plural ownership? Just so that I understand it, thank you.
Maybe an example I could give you would be community ownership would be a good example. I mean, we are having discussions with communities about how we take existing facilities and provide financial support and to give them support to take forward projects that within their own community. That's certainly an element of what the Kevin's team do on a regular basis. Kevin?
Yeah.
Through you, Chair. Councillor Todd, in terms of some practical examples is the work through our community asset transfer work, and also the work that we've done helping some community groups take ownership of land like the Hannison Woods in a group there. So where the ownership of the assets and the lands is shared with our communities, whether that be assets that belong to the council or other assets out there where we support the communities to take ownership of, in that sense that we all share the ability to develop, grow and flourish together. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, David. That explains it to me. So it's where we're assisting the community. It would be a good example for them to have a say and take ownership of all assets that otherwise may have been lost. That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. Tom Cook. Tom.
Thanks, Chair. No, I mean, through the Ayrshire growth deal, obviously one of the key targets was to increase employment within the area, create new job opportunities. I'm just wondering how you're actually going to monitor that, David. I don't see anything in the report. Apologies if I've missed it, but how we actually monitor the new job opportunities that have been created, both by the growth deal and by the rest of the work that's been done by the whole section.
Through you, Chair. Yeah, it's a good question, Councillor Cook. We have the PMO unit actually have this at the heart of their monitoring regime. For each of the projects, we've obviously within the Ayrshire growth deal we have an estimate of number of jobs that we created through each of the projects, and then it's obviously there's a realisation of those as we progress through each of the projects. We'll be able to identify and provide that information back, and that information is brought through obviously the joint committee. So we do. There's a regular monthly update on this that we provide to the chief executives on just how progress is going. But it is important to understand that we've had to set up significant back office systems just to monitor this, so that we can actually have a handle on what the actual job opportunities in creation are. So hopefully that answers your question, Councillor Cook.
Can I just come back in on that?
Sure.
I think it'd be useful if that information could be shared across cabinets at some point, so that we all see what's actually happening, you know, where the jobs are being created, to see that the money that we're spending is actually being effective.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
That'd be fine, Chair.
Thanks, Tom. John? No, John was Neil. Neil, you want back in?
I'd be sorry, but it's no helping. It's not. just for clarity again, Chair, on page 53, in the table, preparing proportion of people earning less than a living wage, is that that figure gained from the employability support programme? What does it represent, please?
Was it particularly clear? Did you get that okay, David?
Well, I think I did. Yeah, I mean, these are figures that are common benchmark figures that we achieve through linking through Ian's office. I mean, they are in terms of new employability startups, and I think that was the question.
Yeah, it was, David. It was this, to confirm that was people that we had supported into employment. That was all.
Yeah, that's a percentage of unemployment people. That's an overall figure. That's not just East Ayrshire, but because bear in mind, through you, Chair, that when the council are one element of a large employability programme, so there's a number of organisations, so that figure is based on an overall figure.
Right, thanks, David.
Okay, pulling my fingers this morning. Okay, thanks. I think we had a fair bit of discussion, good bit of discussion there on that service improvement plan. We're over now to Linda McCauley-Griffiths. Linda, over to education.
Hi. Sorry, my fingers are not working either. That's me now off mute. Thank you, and through you, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Really pleased to be here today to present the Education Service Plan 2021 to 24. So, colleagues, I'm briefly going through this plan. As Ian has already noted, the preamble takes the same structure as the other plans. So you will see in page 75, the introduction, and 76 through 80 that covers the service profile in regards to who we are and what we actually cover out there in the big sphere of education. Obviously including, colleagues, our schools, ECCs, our peripheral services such as the East Ayrshire Support Team, Educational Psychology, the Scottish Attainment Challenge, Outdoor Learning and Creative Minds also. Page 80 has some reflections on the COVID impact on the service, and once again, as in other plans, we cover our staffing profile through pages 81 through to 84, again with that breakdown in terms of stratification of the service. Page 84 through 90 cover the strategic context of the service and how we basically arrive at the stage that we're now at in regards to cognizance of the community planning partnership, the local outcome improvement plan, clearly corporate governance, best value, external audit, to name but a few. So again, common to other service plans, colleagues, but just again to pop through the strategic context. From 90 through to 93, there's the service performance framework, and that covers issues such as consultations undertaken, the Pentana scorecard, and indeed any complaints. And on pages 94 through to 100, we cover elements of risk as they pertain to the service, and they're updated regularly and monitored regularly through both team meetings and indeed, colleagues, through East Ayrshire Performs and our health and safety networks. From page 101 onwards, we take a look back, colleagues, through what has been an extensive period of COVID interruption of service. But as you go through each of our priorities in turn, I do hope you'll agree that to be in the position where all of our outcomes are ongoing, achieved or in progress is a good place to be. And despite, clearly COVID could have gotten in the way of an awful lot of development. It's great to see that ongoing. So they're split, colleagues, as you'll know from me previous bringing improvement plans to you. The priorities are split across the National Improvement Framework of Literacy and Numeracy. That would take you from page 101 to 106. 107 to 114 would take you through health and wellbeing. 115 to 121 covers the closing of the attainment gap, and I would advise that's from a multitude of angles, but with particular focus on equity for our young people. And 122 to 127, very much connected to the work of my colleague David McDowell in economic development, positive destinations. So clearly there is a very detailed narrative in there in respect of each of the targets that we set out to achieve, but clearly I would be looking today to really commend the work of the teams out there during COVID to achieve what they've achieved in those circumstances. Page 127 gets us to the new plan covering 2021 to 2024. Once again, we use the National Improvement Framework as our anchor in respect of the 4 main priorities. We have been out and consulted schools, all of our staff, so not just head teachers, and indeed parents via the Parent Council Steering Group, and they in turn would also be involved in their local school plans, which are already in existence at a local school and team level. Change to this plan in terms of format. We have designated lead officers on each and every one of our targets, clearly coming into post in January 18, in a very limited period of time to put the last iteration of the plan together. So clearly, colleagues, that's an addition this year to have a designated officer leading each development, such that we can build in both project management that my colleague Ian Tuff has referred to, but also look at the monitoring and accountability of same. So colleagues, in reaching finally the plan proper, pages 127 and 128 cover our targets for literacy and numeracy. You'll see a huge focus, I hope, on early years and play pedagogy and early primary, collaboration. Clearly, SQA certification is a very current topic, and overall pedagogy as it relates to literacy and numeracy. And on page 129, colleagues, you'll see the baselines that refer to same, where we've been and where we ought to be going. Page 130 sees the start of the planning around about health and wellbeing, and probably this has been one of the biggest years for all of that. And I'm really grateful for the chance to connect with my colleagues right across the services with this, in respect of clearly the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, Respect Me, the Schools Counselling Service, clearly community developments and the wellbeing model. We've aligned ourselves strongly with the promise, child poverty, cyber awareness, young carers, and that's really to name but a few. We have detailed baselines for this on page 132. I'm sure colleagues will know this is one of the most difficult aspects of the service to potentially measure in that particular way, but clearly we'll be using every tool we can, and one of the most important being talking to our young people about where they're at and meeting them exactly where they're at. Moving on to the last 2 targets that we use on page 133. We talk about closing the attainment gap, and we're so aware that this can happen for so many reasons and that it's not a simple calculation of one postcode minus another. So we're very focused in this new iteration of the plan of talking about equity of access for all young people, thinking about the cost of the school day and clearly some of the other schemes that are coming through to implement right at this very stage. So there'll be a huge focus on pupil equity fund and appropriate spend of same. Speech and language, again, really grateful to my colleagues, my allied health professionals working with us closely in that area. Professional learning for staff, the early years national standards clearly, and the implementation of the Angela Morgan ASN review. So lots in there to do, but clearly colleagues on 135, we continue to hold ourselves accountable in whatever way we possibly can, and you'll see the baselines for that particular aspect of attainment. Again, closely referring to the report given by my colleague David McDowell, 136 refers to clearly positive and sustained destinations for all young people in East Ayrshire as a priority in both the National Improvement Framework, but indeed for us locally, and also referring back, to Councillor Cook's comments in respect of the Ayrshire Growth Deal and how much we see ourselves as a service aligned to this work. So in this particular target, you'll see reference to digital development, labour market information and economic recovery and development, the Young Persons Guarantee, the Community Renewal Fund, the Ayrshire Growth Deal, vocational programmes, and indeed very current in terms of COP26, but climate and sustainability making its way right into our plans as being front and centre of our thinking to support our young people with, as was so ably done last week at the Climate Change Conference. I would like to single out the continued development at the Employability Hub and the fact that we expect that this is a model that will roll out across the council in due course. Given the success of what we've already seen at SL33, I really hope as many members as possible have had the chance to visit that particular hub, and you'll see, colleagues, the baselines for this particular target are referred to on page 137. In terms of reaching the end of the report, colleagues will be aware 138 gives the current structure in terms of leadership and indeed management of the education service. But as you are aware, I would intend to be bringing a paper on service redesign in the future that will clearly change the current structure as it currently stands. So thank you very much for bearing with me through that rather extended report, and I'm happy to hand over for any questions through you, Chair.
Thanks, Linda. There's a lot there. A few hands up. Fiona Campbell, first of all. Fiona.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Linda, for presenting this very comprehensive plan. And I'd like to thank you and your team for all the hard work you've put into this. I particularly like the named officers in the area of responsibility column. I think that's a very helpful thing. And really, I just want to compliment the service on meeting the challenges of COVID, which has been so unprecedented and so difficult. And of course, we all recognise that this is an ongoing situation, and the education service still has to meet these challenges. So I'd like to thank everyone involved. That's all. Thanks.
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Campbell, and I will make sure, because this is clearly a team effort across our 2,500 staff and indeed our brilliant young people and services who've worked alongside us. So thank you very much for that.
No, I think we'd all like to echo that, Linda. Just an unbelievable effort, particularly since the schools pupils have been back. I mean, I understand the pressures that some of the staff have been under. I think it's appreciated we tell the staff that. Claire Leach, Claire.
That's great. Thanks. Linda, that's a service plan and a half. A power of what's went into that, so thank you for that. But just for me, I just want to say a really genuine thank you for the work that you personally and your team do to listen to the views of young people. Can we just take that for ridden in East Ayrshire, bringing your young people into your decision making and listening and truly listening to your young folk. But just to remember that's not always the case places, and I like how much that's became a normality, particularly under yourself, Linda, in East Ayrshire also. And just also for your commitment to that going forward, in terms of all the work you do with the young folks cabinet, our care experience, young folk or young carers, to have this collaboration of voices into everything that we're doing, we're truly reaching everybody that way. And I just want to say thank you for that, and I look forward to working further with you on that moving forward.
Through you, Chair, thank you very much for that, Councillor Leach. And again, I really will enjoy passing all that back through the service, and thank you to all of you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Hi, thanks for that report, Linda. I think I've actually got a question for you. When I hear the chief BBC political correspondent telling us that COVID is in the rear view mirror, and yet we've had more absent, more kids after school since we went back than we had an entire academic year, I believe, last year. So I think the work that we're doing in education is excellent, and when we talk about health and well-being, child poverty and closing the attainment gap, there's obviously a link between all of them. So I just wanted to ask about page 91 on that table there. Well, it's fantastic to see we've got 47 at green, but there's 21 at red. Is there something that should concern elected members in that, or what are we doing regarding those ones that are at red? Thank you.
Thanks, John. Linda.
Thanks, Councillor McGee, and actually it was one of the places that I looked myself in terms of that, and just to remember, they're not aligned to the service plan, they're from the Pentana scorecard, and some of them wouldn't relate, you know, directly to the performance of young people. And clearly, as you know, we also bring the national report on our attainment, you know, as it would pertain to clearly P147 S3 and then the senior phase in for that. So I suppose it would really depend on, you know, clearly what we already bring to you through governance and scrutiny, but, you know, clearly anywhere where we're not green, you'll see that reflected in the improvement plan, Councillor McGee, and I think you're absolutely right to bring that up, because it's one of the bits that when we're writing the plan, we're really, you know, huge cognisance over that which we see that is not green, and some of it will be marginal amber and some of it will be marginal red. So anything that's in there, Councillor McGee, I'm happy to talk specifics on, but ultimately we've always got a place to grow in terms of this, and I really do hope the next iteration of the service plan does get us there. I'm afraid I can't toggle to the exact, I did attempt there to toggle to the exact measures there, Councillor McGee, but as I say, anything in there that we know that we're still working on, we've still got a way to go in some areas, but, you know, clearly they're all built into the plan to help us get there, because clearly progress will have been slowed by the pandemic without any shadow of doubt, but clearly absolutely still in our sights in terms of growth areas.
I mean, a good seconder there with the dog there, Linda. That was, but I appreciate it now, and I think we'll appreciate the work. Okay. Is that everyone? Yep. Okay, thanks, Linda. Oh, Jim, sorry. Jim, my man.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks very much for that, Linda. As we recover for COVID and over the past year and a half, as what young people have experienced along with the rest is the trauma that they've came through with that. As part of that professional learning that we're going through with our teaching staff, are just a wee bit of reassurance around about being trauma-informed and trauma-informed practices around about that. I had discussions through the week about we're doing Valley Campus, and I'm encouraged to hear that even by design now, and we're architects, that they're taking into account trauma when the design and put into place now we're new education complexes. So all I'm looking for is a bit of reassurance about that part of that professional learning is being trauma informed.
Thanks so much, Councillor McMahon. It's a great question, and absolutely would like to offer that reassurance to everyone on the call today. So in regards to trauma-informed practices, I'm delighted to see you highlight the new campus as having, believe it or not, you know, a trauma-informed layout in terms of all of that, and indeed even signage and how young people feel when they come in the building makes it feel that particular way. But moving forward in terms of the globality of that and whether that's a universal offer in terms of education, I can absolutely advise that that is very much insight and in progress in terms of the specialist transformation. Indeed, many partners on the call are with us on that. The NME studies that we have, for example, on Thank are a feature of national practice, and indeed were featured at the Scottish Learning Festival. And we have groups of staff both involved in book studies, but also our team of 13 and I'm really proud to say that because we've sustained the level of that team thus far in terms of educational psychologists, and indeed the link back to Bruce Perry himself through East Ayrshire is something we're incredibly proud of. So as we move forward, Councillor McMahon, absolutely front and centre, along with colleagues right across services, both council and external to council, have that insight, and absolutely, as you'll see from the improvement plan in our wellbeing model approach, with the rollout of all of that down in Cumnock at the campus is something that we will see on a universal stage. So still working on it, Councillor McMahon, to give you an absolutely honest answer to that, but it's very much front and centre of thinking. And indeed, can I also maybe just advise that, in terms of immediate trauma, potentially as a result of the pandemic and some of the issues that young people, and indeed I would commend my colleagues in HR as well, also for staff, and that's right across the council, have faced, the provisions through both the school counselling services and services that are available to our staff also mean that that's all got a place to go and indeed be supervised. So on all levels, Councillor McMahon, I would just like to offer you that reassurance, and I really do thank you for asking that question.
Thanks very much. It's an interesting topic, for one. I'd be quite interested to see what that actually looks like in terms of trauma design. It's something I'm really not been aware of up to now, and anything that helps in that process. And I appreciate it's a collection of measures to reduce trauma impact, and that's good to see that being implemented. Any other points? No, thank you, Linda, for that, for the report. And now we go to David. David Mitchell with our service plan for corporate service governance.
Thanks, Chairman and members. To my mind, the purpose of a reports like these is to allow Cabinet an opportunity to focus on what services have done and what we're doing, not just out of interest, but to make sure, that looking forward, these are aligned with the Council's aspirations, ambitions and strategic priorities, and that we're deploying our resources and our teams to deliver the Council vision. And looking back is the second part, which is just taking that review of what we said we'd do under the last plan and been satisfied with either in any service delivered or for good reason changed the approach, or there's a carry forward because recognising with or without COVID, not everything gets done first time on time. Therefore, if something was worth doing but didn't get done, it should therefore carry forward into the future plan if it was worth doing and been taken forward, albeit in a delayed timescale. So to me, I'm happy that the pages of the report set out the context of who we are, but a lot of that's actually reflected in and summarised in the structure chart at page 166, whereby members will see the output from the recent implementation of the management restructure is that within governance we now comprise up to 8 services led by 6 managers, noting that planning is obviously development management side of things, as you've heard from David McDowell previously in terms of the disaggregation, and also building standards, and that while regulatory have always been badged as regulatory, they are of course 2 discrete services in the terms of environmental health and trading standards. I look at that chart and I think if you move legal and licensing slightly along to the left, either side of democratic, you could probably write at the bottom either backroom or support, and at the right hand side either frontline service or delivery services. So it's more of a mixture for us. We've been used to being more of backroom, corporate support in various guises, although we did have a fling with regulatory in a previous construct. So we're not entirely unfamiliar with frontline services. So we are a bit of a mixture now, and that's probably reflected in what you have in the service plan. As David has alluded to, these were in preparation prior to the restructure, so there has been that disaggregation, and hopefully we've managed to completely successfully with that, and there's no strays in here. I can't see any from David's residual part of planning in terms of the development plan and policy and projects team and economic growth and all that was retained. So against that backdrop, I would simply draw members' attention in particular to the subsequent pages services, which, as I say, set out what we set out to do the last time. And my general submission there is, and members can see the detail if you want to pursue it, is either things have been done, or in the few occasions where they haven't been done, you can see they carry forward to the next action plan. Focusing on what we're going to do in the future from page 172 onwards, again, there's 36 actions against those 8 services, and I wouldn't propose to go through them line by line, but I would highlight, and perhaps on my submission, if you accept that this is for Cabinet to take a view and take comfort, hopefully, that we're all doing, as I said, what we should be doing and what we said we'd be doing, then in that regard, I would simply flag up in particular around items 6 and 7 there on page 172 around the ongoing procurement support, and we are very clearly aligning what we're doing in procurement with the aspirations for the Ayrshire growth deal, and within that, as you've heard from others, community wealth building. As you heard in an earlier paper, procurement is one of the very clear pillars of the community wealth building approach. Leslie and the team have got that, they've embraced that, they've built that into what we're doing, and they are putting their shoulder to the wheel along with colleagues across the council to deliver that particular strategic priority. The reference at 7, just as an aside, because sometimes a deep dive is illustrative, that relates to an approach we took. Everyone's familiar with the situation where things are put to tender, or there are frameworks in place, and it's too big perhaps, and perceived as too big and unwieldy for small local traders to get involved. But in this instance, we actually sat down with a small local trader in Cumnock involved in the margins of school supplies. And what we're looking at there is developing an approach that we can then roll out in other areas, which is trying to move away from the rhetoric of you have to tender for the big contract, you have to get in the framework, you have to position yourself, and it's like, but I don't provide wall bars, I put the badges on the strips or whatever. So it's overcoming all of that. So what we're actually trying to do is develop an approach by which we still take compliance on board, we still don't break the rules, but working within the rules, how we carve out perhaps some de minimis spend. So don't put the badges, don't put the strips, don't put the trophies into the framework, hold it back legitimately and keep that for the local spend. So we'll bring something further in that to CMT in early course, and there'll be an invitation to other colleagues as to where we might apply that in other areas of our procurement activity. This one is just started with the education context. So that's a specific illustration where we believe we can make a difference in delivering the Council's ambitions and priorities. For legal, we're still trying to comply with the request of Scottish Government around the registration of titles, and we will continue to hold our end up there, but that is fraught with difficulty just due to the scale of that on a national basis. But we'll keep going along with the digitisation of the Council's title deeds, which takes forward continuation of some of the transformation activity. Just to pause over the page at 173, you'll see what we've set out for Democratic. This might be of particular interest to members, given the function of Democratic is partly to support elected members. I paused at 15 because I was looking around my office the other day and I saw this strange beast amongst the papers piled up on the table, and it was something called the Executive Committee. And it kind of took me back to, you know, pre-COVID, pre-March 2020, we had a set of working arrangements for Council and all our committee and decision-making arrangements. And then when COVID came, within a month, we stood all of that down and moved to an executive committee, which met the needs of the organisation right through to September. We then moved to reinstating the various council, cabinet and committees, but running them on a remote basis only. And over the past year, we've had to then develop within that context the delayed broadcasting element, which was coming anyway, but been held up, but we've caught up post-COVID, if we are post-COVID. And like Councillor McGee, I think I didn't see the news article he referred to, but I would take that one with a pinch of salt if we're talking about post-COVID. It doesn't feel like it from the updates we have with colleagues, particularly in the health and social care side, and Linda on the education side. But in terms of where we've been in that one, at the moment, we're even managing the challenge of letting the public into meetings that are being held in buildings that aren't open to the public. But these are the challenges we take, and they can't be. That's not any kind of critique. That's fact. But my point is, as in democratic, you have a service that can respond to any of these difficulties. And I don't compare getting our committee arrangements right, anything as important as keeping people alive and safe and fed and properly protected with PPE. We did some of that through procurement, but as a council, we did all of that. And I don't put this in a par with that, but equally, this is an aspect of how the organisation functions. And part of what we do is try and always keep the ship afloat. And I think in the context of looking at future decision makings, it's worth just having a look back at what we've actually achieved, because when you're up against it, as we have all been, and I'm not scoring any points here, we've worked as a team, we've delivered as a team, and we've delivered as a council. But sometimes you actually forget the detail of just how far you've come when you're always looking forward. And as I say, that was a moment for me when you think the executive committee, because that just feels like a different life and a different lifetime. But we carry on, and we will continue to deliver the committee arrangements going forward. I actually missed the beginning of the planning committees. I don't know, it was like a page turner. I don't know if we had our first planning hearing post-COVID, if we can say post-COVID, because it was down to whether or not the objector attended, and I missed the start of the planning committee meeting on Friday. So we may have had our first post-COVID planning hearing as well, built into their arrangements. I think members are aware it's not a major one. Registration is just about bringing it all together in the Burns Monument Centre, because we're making use of all the online processes and everything else, technology, etc. So that's a low impact move, because everybody's dealing with online, so it's less important to have a presence, but we will retain a presence in Cumnock for the marginal amount of business that still is conducted in person there. And again, just to lay a marker down at 17, members are aware there will be proposals. I've touched on this in previous meetings, discussions. There will be proposals coming forward for a proposed just a refresh and a review of the current support arrangements within member services. And what we're hoping to do there before the next election is to future-proof that and have that in place, so that obviously, as always, irrespective of the outcome of the election, we are ready to hit the ground running, and the council that comes back is accepting of the arrangements in place, rather than start to deal with that when the new council will have much more important business to deal with. And again, members are cited on for the ones that are probably more higher profile, the REF and the 9cc. The REF was just about how we deal with developer contributions and can we smarten that up, and the 9cc is the opposite of that, which is bringing in more work at an income to the democratic, because we will be providing the administration service to that new body. And myself and David McDowell are down there days this Wednesday, tomorrow afternoon, for their inaugural meeting, at which they'll hopefully set up their own constitution once some of the left field interference has been dealt with. And I think the other one I would give, because it will come to you members, is at 21 for information governance. They're a small team of 4. We set them up in a previous service redesign, and the bottom line is they really do punch above their weight in keeping the council safe. And in that regard, at 21, we'll be delivering further e-learning modules, which will be mandatory, I think, certainly for all employees, and if not mandatory for councillors, certainly commended to all in terms of keeping us all safe in our use of kit and IT going forward. I was going to skip the dog filing because you just get sick of it, to be honest, but members will be interested to see regulatory are continuing with the development of the online system to allow easier and better reporting of dog fouling in the areas. And obviously the Food Law Enforcement Recovery Plan reflects other changes in their domain that they have factored in going forward. And finally, planning, I think the two things I would focus on is, one, in the round, most of those actions reflect the good work that was already been undertaken under previous management in terms of trying to improve the planning performance. And that's not just in the round subjective, as members are well aware from many previous reports. There is a statutory or a formal planning performance framework within which we have to operate and be judged. A lot of progress was made under the previous management, and we will simply take that baton and continue to run with it and continue to hopefully demonstrate further progress and improvement where it's required, recognising that for all planning, take the brickbats, for all we maybe get complaints about planning aspects or applications, it's not always the service. Every 15 minutes or so, it would seem that they actually do provide a really good service. They really do provide good quality reports, and members of the planning committee and the local review body know that they benefit. Appreciate they're long, but they're necessarily long, but they contain all the information that's required, and that's part of our function in any governance services, to make sure the decision-making body has the right information and the best advice before they take those decisions. And the other one, again, in terms of aligning to to strategic priorities of the council, planning have acknowledged and see their role in supporting any of the bids through the Levelling Up Fund there at number 29 on page 174. I'm sure any of us, any manager, any chief officer, any head of service, whatever, could come in here and talk for hours about their own service. And if we can't, then there's something wrong. However, in the context of this agenda, this meeting, and the other service plans, as well as other items, I would propose to leave it there, Chair, unless there's any particular points of interest, query or clarification. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Excellent report there. Always, like the members are always interested what happened with litter and dog fouling as our constituents. We'd like to see that go. Just in terms of, we've had the restructure, David, and in terms of, you mentioned just yourself, plans separated from economic growth, and I was actually surprised to see the Levelling Up Fund. I'm not really, it was done by yourself, but I can see it, I can understand that. How do we make sure that planning itself continues to support economic growth, and that good working relationships still happen, because of mutual benefits and council's aspirations?
As you know, Chair, members, there's two parts to that. One, we've left the key part. The key support is the policy, the development plan and the policy and project section. So that's Carol. Everybody knows Carol and Karen Purvis and that team, and also Colin McKee in the projects team. So what you've done as a council with the restructure is leave the right resource in the right place. So although we're talking generally of planning and economic growth, we should not overlook that actually within the head economic growth resources, you have an element of the old planning service, which is the strategic development plan and the projects team, because quite clearly the thinking was they'll be needed to help support the direct delivery of the AGD projects, such as CORE. I mean, Carol is the lead, that team is the lead in that. So that resource remains in the economic growth service within housing and communities service, and within the overall Safer Communities collection of services. And that's the first point. The second point is that's not development management taking on the Levelling Up Fund, but what that is development management recognising that if proposals have been put forward to that, then one of the asks is going to be, well, what's the planning position? If we're putting up a project, what's the planning position? And it's about how we can fast track that, pre-app discussions, whatever, and get to a position early, which will support the decision making on whether or not this is a lead kite or a kite that will fly when the money decisions have been taken in planning terms. So the core resource and the core function sits within the head economic growth, within the broader Safer Communities, with the immediate resources for delivery. And this is about how the development management side, which came over with building standards to governance, it's about how we can support that core activity. So in essence, you've got the right resources in the right places, and it's about how we help the council and colleagues within the council deliver the AGD and the specific projects.
That's fine, that's helpful. David, did you want to? No.
No, just to add to that, Chair, I mean, just in practice, what's happening is if there's any projects coming along, such as Levelling Up, we will liaise with colleagues in development management as and when necessary, just to bring them into that so that they're cited. So that is, it's no different to what it was before the restructure. So just to give you that reassurance, Chair.
Chair, sorry, there's one further point I should have made there, which is David and I still have one final piece of work to do, which will also address the point you made, which is to finalise the review of what was David's old post, the performance manager, that was the operational manager, planning and building standards. We have an interim appointee there, but in light of the management restructure, the one bit of work still to be done there is to rewrite that to reflect the restructure, the requirements of the restructure, the future requirements of the council, and we'll make provision there, because ultimately the development plan team that still remain with the head economic growth will need to feed into that, and I can't call it a chief planner and I can't call it a senior planner, but that top planning post. So there will be a direct line reporting up from development management to that top planning post, but there will also be a broken line, if you like, reporting in, because anything done in the development plan is done in their name. So we know it all needs to work. We know it needs to work in a joined up way, and we will deliver that as part of the review of that particular post to reflect that situation and the requirements of the council.
Well, that's helpful. That's reassuring. Thanks for that. Anyone else? We've got a couple. Neil McGee, Jim and Jackie. Right, Neil.
Thanks, Chair. Again. I've got it sorted my sound out, but it's echoing. Anyway, it's no question, Chair. Just a thank you to David. The report's massive. There's a huge amount of detail and varied detail, but I particularly want to thank the work they're doing on the procurement stuff, making it easier for small businesses and local enterprises in the third sector, which is an important part of going forward. So thanks very much, David.
Thanks, Neil. Your sound's actually better. Okay, Jim.
Thanks, Chair. And again, just thanks again for that report, David, in depth as it goes. Just picking up on the point that Councillor McGee had raised there, I'm delighted to see that we're going down that route with procurement. I think it ties in exactly where community wealth building aspects and when we want to go with that. I think you're right to point out this is all about delivering the council's vision, taking that like the review of the last plan and where we're currently sitting, where we're going, and some targets we haven't reached and some aspirations we're going to reach. As far as it does seem a lifetime ago. Normally when you're enjoying yourself, time flies in, but we weren't enjoying ourselves, I dare say, for the start of March through to September, and that executive committee working all the way out through that, and the thanks for me as an elected member how that progressed through there and how it actually worked. As you pointed out, David, that was achieved because we worked as a team with it all the way out through that, and I think that it just reflects in East Ayrshire and the elected members and the officers all the way out through where we currently sit, how we've got there. Delighted now that we've got our delayed broadcasts in place. It's been a long time coming, but we're finally there, and that just lets the public know that transparency, and it should give them peace of mind as the way that the council conduct their business, and it opens up that wider audience now that we're doing that public broadcast. I'm delighted that we've still got part of that registration service is still retained within Cumnock. I think it's vital that it is still there and it's not kind of centralised, if you want to cry that way, doing about the Burns monument. And again, you touched on the 9cc being set up, and looking forward to that meeting again on Thursday. So once again, David, thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And Jackie. Jackie Todd. Jackie.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. A lot of what I wanted to say has been said, and I'm not going to use the word delighted now because Jim used it so often, but I'm very happy about the fact that we're looking at the application and process in line with the aspirations we have for community wealth building to make this procurement and supply process easier for small independent local businesses, because that goes at the core of everything that we want to be in East Ayrshire. So thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. John?
I haven't really a question, but just to reiterate some of the things that's already been said, totally agree with procurement. But a point David made, I don't think we should be forgetting where we came from with the executive committee and how quickly we got into action. Councils, and this one will be no different. We're always open to criticism and we can always get things better. But I think during the pandemic, we went to executive committee and we went on. We were delivering, or trying to deliver as fast as we could, millions of pounds out into our community. And there was a whole range of officers were all involved in that. And whether that was to individuals, families, or indeed businesses through East Ayrshire. And as always, we're open to criticism, but I think we can be very pleased with our efforts as a council through this time. Thank you.
No, I appreciate those words, and I absolutely echo them, John. I think it's good and it's important that officers hear that, because it is sometimes these members don't voice for appreciation the way we should, but it certainly gets us through. It continues to get us through difficult circumstances. John?
Just on what I was going to say there, just to go back to it, and in all this member services, again, we're looking at them again. Whoever goes out or comes back in at the next election, there'll still be 32 years here. And member services are vital for councillors to be able to do their job. We couldn't do it without them. Thank you.
Absolutely correct, 100%. Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, David, for the report and just support what Councillor McGee said there about member services. The question is really in relation to, it's on page 164, the benchmarking. I noticed, the cost of our planning application processing is going up, has gone up seemingly almost every year, and we're now sitting about benchmark about 30 in Scotland. I'm just wondering, is this connected to the sheer number of wind farm applications that we're getting, which obviously take a considerable more time and effort to be put through the planning process? And is there any movement in terms of the actual planning fees we can charge for these larger projects, which I think has been discussed in the past?
If you don't mind, Chair, and I don't like passing questions on, but I did acknowledge earlier, I'm still coming to grips with some of the detail. I was wondering whether COVID had an impact, but the figures in there at 164 are actually only up to March 20, so I can't even wave the COVID shroud in aid. So I'll maybe take the kind offer coming over my left shoulder and ask my predecessor in management if he's able to assist Councillor Cook with that one.
Yeah, thanks, David. Councillor Cook, yeah, I mean, you're right in terms of the wind farm applications. They are quite significant. Particularly, it's not that a normal application is counted in those figures, but where you have additional work through what they call Section 36 or 37 applications, which are under the Electricity Act. That is all work that we have to do and to process. But there's a slight increase there, obviously. Which is something that staff keep monitoring. It can be, in terms of fees, there is additional fees that have been agreed by the Scottish Government for a number of years that we were taking very large wind farm developments. If you consider the likes of the Whiteley wind farm development, the council would have retrieved a very little planning fee for that. Nowadays, that is considerably different. I mean, we brought in a fee for North Kyle in the region of more than £100,000. So the government, after a lot of hard discussion, negotiating, and accepted that the Energy Consents Unit would have to put the fees up, and that has now been taken on board. So there is a realisation that if you've got a large major development, that you have to pay for it, and that has now been taken on board. That does impact though on the admin side of it, getting applications in, and that's obviously been reflected in the performance. Hopefully that answers your question, Councillor Cook.
I know it continues to be subject to COSLA. I think there's a lot of pressure trying to be put in the government just to help with some of these issues. David?
I think one other thing that is obviously with the pandemic, there was a consideration of putting the fees up, but given where we are with the economy and while construction is booming just now, the government have not taken on board any updating any new fees, which obviously are there to the planning system does not fully recover its fees. That was the judgment that was identified. So the idea was that the increase of the fees in the larger items would help to bring that in line. That's going to have to happen over a number of years, but with the pandemic that has been stalled somewhat. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah. Thanks, David, for that. So really what we're saying, I think, is because we're getting a number of high value jobs to do, and all we were recovering the cost, it's showing up in our benchmarking is that we've got a very high figure to process, but that's in relation to the number of high cost applications that we're processing. So that's fine. Thanks, David.
Okay. Well, Jim Roberts is here. Jim, welcome.
Thanks very much, Chair. I think you make a fair and relevant point, Tom. And I mean, this has been a running story for a long time. And there has been various representations made in regard to the level of fees that could be charged. Because I think if you look at the complexity of some of these applications and what they involve in terms of officers' time, even with increased fees, there's no way we're actually meeting what we're actually laying out. Another knock-on effect as well is the aspect of any time they're refused, they invariably go to appeal, and that ties up a lot of officer time as well. So I think the fees have to be more realistic to reflect what councils are spending, to try and process them. But you make a fair point. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, is that another? No, that's us. Okay, thanks, David. That's an excellent report. I think that's us. Over to Amanda now, the final service improvement plan. And over to you, Amanda.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I want to focus on some of the more specific detail on the plan for People and Cultural Service, and focus particularly on the improvement action plan contained within the report. As you're aware, the People and Cultural Service was created as part of the review of the Council's management structure, which was approved at Council on the 24th of June this year. The service is made up of the former Human Resources Service and the Communications team, which was previously part of the Transformation and PPP Service. You will see from our service profile on page 179, our services now cover employee relations, organisational development, support services, management information, which includes payroll, workforce planning and communications. As noted in the staffing structure on page even 182, we currently have a total of 63 employees, or 58.28 full-time equivalent. Our improvement action plan, which was set for the period 2018 to 21, and our previous plan, which starts on page 191, and our progress over that period is captured in the look back section. You will see that some of the strategic actions the former Human Resource Service has achieved include developing an organisation-wide workforce plan, which was approved at Cabinet on the 1st of May 2019, and work is ongoing in this area to implement the key actions of that plan. Design and implement a council-wide apprenticeship framework, which was agreed at Cabinet in March 20, and again work continues in this area to create different apprenticeship pathways. Also developing a coaching approach to support succession planning. This has been aligned to the FACE framework, and so far we've had 16 coaching programme cohorts and that have been completed, and a further 10 scheduled to take place by the end of December 21. I would also note that some of the actions have not been fully achieved, and some of these, in the case, were inevitable with delays from COVID, which has impacted on our progress while we were focusing on the response to the pandemic. These include our support to review our management structures, and although this hasn't been fully achieved, good progress has been made, and work is ongoing as part of service redesign. Previously mentioned, the council management structure was approved at council in 2021, and the resultant changes being embedded across the board. Consolidation of the living wage and our pay scales was planned to be completed by March 2021, but an extension was agreed at Cabinet until April 2022, and I can advise that good progress has been made in this for us to be able to meet the revised timescales. The previous actions of our communications team are also set out on page 197 and include the review of the council's social media arrangements and the introduction of Granicus email marketing platform across the council. Our actions for 21 to 24 are then set out in the look forward section starting on page 199. We've separated these into actions which relate to our workforce, our partnerships, our business and our development, although we recognise that naturally there will be some levels of overlap in areas. These actions include short, medium and long-term projects, and to give you an indication of the range of work included, I would highlight the following. We will undertake a review of People and Cultural Service redesign and Best Value Service review by March 2022. We'll review and update the corporate communication strategy by March 2022. Further develop CRIS 21 HR and payroll integrated system and roll out the absence reporting to service managers by March 2022. We're going to review the council's wellbeing framework in conjunction with health and safety and healthy working lives. Review the action for the HR implications arising from the independent review of adult social care by March 23. To further development on our career pathways and apprenticeships by March 23, and continue to provide communication support to help deliver East Ayrshire's recovery and renewal objectives. And this is anticipated to be required until the end of this plan at March 2024. I trust this sets out the work that the service has been involved in and outlines areas planned for improvement areas over the next 3 years. Happy to take any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Amanda. Any hands up there? Joy?
Hi, Amanda. Thanks for that report. I think the apprenticeship framework is a fantastic thing because one we can do to get young people into work and allow them to progress is excellent news. But just to go back to consolidate a living wage into East Ayrshire council pay scales, again we've given an extension. How many people does this actually affect within the council? And is it possible to have it completed prior to the extension date? Thank you.
Amanda.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Sorry, I'm getting back. We work is well underway with that, and what we're currently looking at is between our grade 1 and grade 5 employees. I don't have the total amount, but for embedding the living wage is about 1/5 of the workforce in total. But I can get you that specific number and send it on to you. With regards to progress, we are hopefully nearing completion, and I would anticipate over the month of November, if not at the beginning of December, to be able to have that back to Cabinet for approval. We've currently got approval from one of the trade unions, and I think with a small tweak we can have approval for the second, and we're still to hear back for the third, so we're very close to completion in that piece of work. That answers your question.
John?
I know. Thanks very much for that, Amanda. I think given the cost of living increases that we're all going to be facing, but especially those at a lower wage scale, hopefully we can come to agreement with the trade unions and get that implemented as soon as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Okay, Jim Roberts.
Thanks very much, Chair. A good report, as always, Amanda. For some of the work streams that you're proposing, I know in the recent past, we've looked at IT, etc., but for some of these changes that you're proposing going forward, is there any further investment you need in IT systems to help you achieve this, whether it's a bespoke system or other systems that you need to buy in to streamline what you're going to be proposing?
Through you, Chair. So through the payroll review, we've already built in additionality there for some consultant time and some specialised IT work. We've also been working closely with Joe and his team to help develop the system. So we think that from that last review, we've covered that off and built in that provision that wasn't previously there, Councillor Roberts.
That's fine, Amanda. Thank you.
So Amanda, the additionality will be welcome. Okay, members, any other call? Jim, sorry, jump on.
Thanks, Ian. It's just for comment, and it's I think looking at through the organisational development, that prepare a revised learning development strategy for elected members in conjunction with democratic services, and that comes in March 22. I think I'll look at the rest as a whole, but we're back here to see that new revised structure. But I think it's important to raise that issue that for elected members, it's vital that we have that learning development all the way out through our term in office, and I'll look forward, hopefully, to that revised learning and development structure.
Hopefully, yeah. Can agree more. Anyone else? Okay, thanks, Amanda. Just thanks, everybody. Ian, you want to say anything in conclusion?
No, thanks, Chair. I think it's been well covered. Those plans are now in place for 3 years, but we will provide annual updates around about summertime next year. Thanks.
So if you go back to page 3, there's recommendations. If you a telephone directory is worth, there's recommendations there in paragraph 2. Can we agree recommendations? Okay, thanks very much. And that's the end of the educational items if members want to We'll let education spokesperson want to leave at this stage. Thank you. Okay, now item 3, the Ayrshire Leisure Facility Strategy, and Annika is going to take us through that.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. This paper is to present to you the first ever East Ayrshire Leisure Trust Facility Strategy. It started a couple of years ago where we decided that we would carry out an audit of all leisure facilities across East Ayrshire, regardless of whether we manage them or the public or the private sector manage them or the community manage them. And the aim of that was to get a picture of what was on offer for our communities, but also then to develop our facilities so that they weren't duplicating what was already working well within communities. So the audit was carried out in 1920, and we then carried out a community engagement exercise. Now, this wasn't as thorough as we would have liked it to have been because we then entered into the restrictions that COVID brought us. However, we still did do an online survey, and we did target specific groups in specific areas and did some online engagement through different various platforms. So we received quite a few comments on that, particularly from people in Kilmarnock, Sturton and Patna, and then we did some work with other groups throughout the area. One of the questions we asked was how important leisure facilities were to people and how they would rank particular facilities. So point 6 of the report outlines the 10 highest ranking facilities to our communities. Open space is obviously really important to people and has been never more important than it has been in the last 18 months. But you can see in front of you the other facilities that are particularly important to people within the community. We also asked what we thought they would like us to focus on in our venues and for our future corporate delivery plans. So again, at item 7, you can see a number of the things that people would like us to focus on. And these are things that we already do, and so we'll continue to enhance our programmes around these items. So the facility strategy then was then developed on the back of the consultation and the audit, and we now have in front of you an 8-year strategy which aligns to our strategic vision to 2030. It was also recognised because of the limitations over our engagement that as we implement this strategy, we will need to do further engagement. As we develop our facilities, we'll need to do further engagement, and we particularly want to do engagement with young people. One of the things that we're keen to do next year is to establish a youth board, which feeds into our own governance structures, and that's something that will be covered in our next delivery plan for 22 to 24. So our strategy then splits our venues into 9 main categories, which are outlined in section 12 of the report. The place-based lifestyle hubs will focus on working closely with health and social care partnership, with vibrant communities and with primary healthcare providers. These venues will focus on health and well-being, and they'll encourage that pathway to better health and physical activity and mental well-being as well. We'll then have our community sports hubs, which will support community clubs to develop their sport, again working from early years right the way through to adults as well. Flexible community spaces, so these will be ones where we work closely with the community to respond to community events and community needs and workshops that local people want to see. Our flexible cultural hubs will be about working in our heritage assets and creating kind of mini Dick Institutes throughout our communities. So facilities that have our libraries, our museums, have extensive programming, have hospitality and retail in them. Sports pitches and open spaces, again, reflecting how important open spaces are to people. We're also conscious that our mobile services have been really important in the last 18 months, getting our services out to communities where there hasn't been a facility. So we want to look at how we extend our mobile services, not just with libraries, but all of our services, so that we can go into communities where we don't have a facility. The digital venue is also incredibly important. Our online engagement in the last 18 months has soared, and it's something we want to capture and maximise. So we want to treat our digital space as a venue and not just as a marketing tool, but also as a place to engage, to do workshops, to stream live events. So we'll be developing that over the length of this plan. Also included are green networks, incredibly important, and flexible spaces for play outdoors too. We also want to theme our activities and what we do within our venues, really focus in well-being, in tourism, programming, sustainability, contributing to the net zero targets, looking at digital transformation. So those are the main themes and how we'll take forward the strategy. So the second part of the strategy identifies the vision for all of our venues. Every venue that we manage is included, and we've created high-level priorities for the next 8 years for each of the venues. This will allow us then to work with partners to develop place-based approaches and to avoid duplication of services. So that is the crux of the report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Annika. An excellent report. Quite a lot in it. Members, any questions or comments? Jim McMahon and Jim Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Annika, paragraph 5, first of all, I'm delighted to hear about the Young People Board, but if I can get paragraph 5 in the online survey, I'd be keen to know the demographics round about that. As part of that online survey, do we ask age as part of that survey when they're participating in it?
No, we didn't ask. Sorry, we didn't ask age in this because we only ask questions that we feel are relevant, and at that point we didn't think it was relevant because we knew we had a lot more consultation to do and we wanted to work with stakeholder groups. So no, that wasn't one of the questions we asked.
Okay, thanks. It might be worthwhile in future maybe taking that into account when we're doing surveys and getting the demographics of the people that's responding to us. But I think off the back of that, doing that further engagement, I think my reservations run about the survey and who's taking it will be more or less balanced when we have that engagement with the young people run about this. But because looking at some of the stuff that's seen that falls in lower, like the skate parks, running, is more what I would associate with younger people. So I'm encouraged, although we don't have it in the survey, if maybe part of that could come out in that young people's engagement.
Thanks, Jim. Other Jim Roberts. Jim, you're on mute. I'll go to you and then I'll come back to you, Jim. Sorry.
Annika, thanks for that report. When we talk about sports pitches and open spaces, what about the ones where East Ayrshire Leisure don't have a say in, where we've got plural ownership through community asset transfer? So will we be engaging with people that have the kind of sports facilities so that we can link up what we're doing so that people that maybe can't get to a hub, say like for example Sturton, and don't have the ability or the finance to travel from one place to the other, so they can have the same sports facilities, not necessarily the same sports facilities, but the same open spaces and pitches and outdoor spaces. Thank you.
Absolutely. One of our priorities is to support other community groups in the development of their own facilities, and also to make sure that there's a clear picture of what's on offer. That's what the audit was due to do, as well, so that we know exactly what's on offer, but then we can jointly promote what's on offer so that everybody is aware that it's not just East Ayrshire Leisure that provides things, but there's lots of fantastic community facilities out there as well. But absolutely, we're there to support communities as they develop their own facilities. One of the pieces of work we're doing right now is around the green infrastructure strategy, which includes sports pitches. So it's not just about green spaces, it's about amenity open spaces, sports pitches, play parks, and that's currently going through a community engagement led by Vibrant Communities, where they're working with every community to identify the spaces within their community and how they want to see them developed. So that will form an action plan for open spaces, which, as I said, includes sports pitches within every settlement in East Ayrshire, and that's a piece of work that we obviously support.
Thanks. Jim Roberts, Jim, are you back?
Yeah. My connection opened off. That's just the space of 5 minutes. I got a hold of IT, but if somebody could Democratic Services can maybe help me there, that'd be great.
The IT is with us here. They're looking in. He's not here, Jim. Okay, get your question in.
No, thanks, Dougie. Annika, yourself and your team has obviously put a lot of work into this, very much appreciated. My question revolves around the River Aire Way. We know we've had problems with South Ayrshire in the past in regard to what their level of investment is. Just past there, we've had a massive landslip, as we know, for several years. Is there any indication of what South Ayrshire Council is going to do to try and reinstate this section of the pathway, bearing in mind the numbers that they actually embark on walking the River Aire Way on an annual basis?
My understanding from South Ayrshire Council is that they are discussing with the landowner at the moment a solution to that landslip. The particular area that you're talking about, right on the river, really quite a precarious banking, as you'll know, and so they're looking at taking it away from the river a wee bit and into the field. So my understanding is they're negotiating that with the landowner at the moment.
Thanks, Annika.
Okay, I've got Tom and Claire. Tom first.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Annika, for that report. Really a lot of information in it. One of the complaints or comments I've had back from kind of teenagers is now that we've kind of formalised all our football pitches and turned them into all weather, put them in schools, there's a kind of lack of space where, you know, half a dozen people can go and have a kick about. Stuff that I used to do as a kid on the road, you can't do that anymore. So I'm pleased to see within the report that I think that's being considered as part of the open space strategy to make sure that that kind of informal play space, you know, flat level play space is made available in communities.
Thanks, Tom. I was just going to say my own stomping ground in Belfield, and just thinking that we've built every bit where we used to kick a ball. I think that's a valid point. You know, to improve the national team, it's not just synthetic pitches; it's these kickabout areas as well. And I think that's, you know, other football practitioners are aware of that, and it's a good point. Katie.
I just wanted to commend Annika for this report. It's not a question as such, but really the relationship and partnership between Annika and her leadership in East Ayrshire Leisure and the Council has really grown, particularly over COVID, but also having this long-term strategic direction. We haven't had it before. And as Councillor McMahon said, there will be engagement ongoing. This will be ongoing so that we build this up. But actually the relationships are strong and we're in a really strong position to serve our communities in a partnership basis. I'm really proud of the relationship that we've developed over this time and also for Annika's leadership.
Absolutely. No, I think we've seen a transformation in terms of Leisure Trust under Annika's leadership, and I think it's something we're proud of, and I'm looking forward to some of the things that are programmed here. I'm going to maybe comment on some local issues at the end, but I'll let Claire in first.
Thanks, Chair. Actually, Katie put it, I think, far better than I did there. I mean, the relationship now within the partnership is absolutely fantastic. I think the facility strategy and the engagement is what we need to inform, and further engagement need to inform the next 8 years. And I'm delighted with some of the outcomes. What I would like to see is that we are definitely avoiding duplication. We are not in competition. We work in partnership with the other leisure facilities out there, and I think that's the big difference and the biggest change in attitude. We support each other. It's not a competition, and I think that has been a wonderful outcome. And I want to thank Annika for the report and for all her help as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Claire. Yeah, thanks for that. And of course, in terms of your chairmanship of the trust as well. Thanks for that. Anyone else? Well, I've just got a couple of issues I was wanting to raise. I think in terms of Chris House Library, I think that's it's a fairly new resource, and your suggestion that hospitality provision, I think it's a great idea. It's the facilities underused just now. And, I think the community appreciate the venue, but it is a wee bit underused, and I think we need to look at some broadening diversity of what the offer is within it, and maybe as you say, like helping it's way tucked away in the back there, and I think a lot of people aren't aware of it, even people in the village. I think that's great. I wasn't able to make the visit to the Dean Castle Country Park, but John and others tell me it's really worthwhile, and I hope I can get round it soon. It's great to see some of the investment. You know, we've all been anxious. It's been closed for maybe longer than we thought due to COVID, but it makes it maybe all worthwhile just to see what's in there and what you've done over there, and I'm looking forward to that. And the other issues in terms of the investment into the looking forward to the priorities for 22-30 in the Palace and Grand Hall. And I think it's a really good idea. First, I've heard it mooted for a landscape plan to provide opportunities for outdoor performance. You know, we've never really used the venue's proximity to Kilmarnock Water, and there is a bit of space out there we could utilise, and I think that's a great idea. And just have the links, you know, with the water there, and obviously with all our venues, and particularly town centre ones, improve the car parking there. I think that's in good hands. But coming out, there's a lot of innovation there, and that's what we want to see. We're not prepared just to stand still, and look forward to improving leisure facilities right across the board. So I don't think there's anyone else. John, you wanted to put your hand up? Yeah, John.
Thanks, Dougie, and thanks for reminding me of my recent visit to both the Dean Castle and the Dean Castle Country Park, which I'm in often. I think it is a great facility, the castle and the country park. And again, it has taken longer than we imagined, obviously due to the pandemic, etc. And I know there's still a great deal of work to be done inside, but it was a fantastic visit, and I really think that when it's finished, as I said, it will be fabulous. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Okay, and thanks to everyone else, and thank you, Annika, for this excellent report, as Katie and others have said. Okay, I think that's it. Is there any recommendations there? Page 207, there's paragraph 2, there's 3 recommendations. Can we agree with the recommendations there? Okay, thanks very much. Okay, and on to item 4 now. Annika, you're back on again for the Cumnock Area Leisure Hub update. Annika.
Thank you, Chair. This report is just to provide an update on work that we've been undertaking since recommendations were made at Cabinet on 28th of October last year, and also to seek approval for the future of Auchinleck Leisure Centre. So in October, 28th of October, Cabinet agreed the recommendations outlined in point 3 of the report. So since then, we have been undertaking a lot of work in terms of engagement in the area to develop a strategic partnership. In June of this year, with COVID restrictions easing, we were able to open the Barney Sports Village. It is a fantastic, as we all know, it's a fantastic facility, brilliant opportunities for young people in all aspects of the community to get involved in physical activity within the sports village. We've been working with Cumnock Juniors and with Cumnock Rugby Club to develop formal arrangements for the area. They have standard bookings, and they're both developing school of football and school of rugby, and it's important that we prioritise that and support it. So we are looking at formal arrangements for both of these organisations. We're also doing some work with the Ayrshire Athletics Partnership so we can introduce an athletics programme at the Barney Sports Village. As you know, we run a very successful programme in partnership with Kilmarnock Harriers at Ayrshire Athletics Arena, and so we feel that we can mirror that at the Barony, and we're working with the Ayrshire Athletics Partnership to do that. While all that work's been going on, Auchinleck Leisure Centre has been operating as a standalone facility, and we've done a number of community engagement exercises around the future of Auchinleck Leisure Centre. We invited all existing users to stakeholder sessions to discuss the future of the centre. So we held 3 stakeholder sessions for existing users, but we also did a wider questionnaire to enable members of the community to contribute to the consultation as well. The stakeholder sessions did raise concerns about the potential loss of the pool in the area. However, the majority of the issues that were discussed were around the loss of pitches and the indoor facilities. And that kind of formed most of the discussion of the engagement sessions. So we have developed, based on that, we've developed two proposals, two options for the future of Auchinleck Leisure Centre, which I'll come to in a moment. At section 11, I've just outlined a wee bit of our recovery since COVID. Auchinleck Leisure Centre has seen a decrease of 61% in the use of the swimming pool. This isn't unexpected. Recovery across the leisure industry and other industries is slow, but our other facilities with pools have shown a decrease of 19% and 2%. That's at Loudon and Doon leisure centres. So 61 is quite significant in comparison to the other pools. However, contrary to that, Auchinleck Leisure Centre's outdoor facilities have seen an increase of 150% in the use of outdoor pitches for the same period. This is significant, and it's much higher than any of our other sports pitch facilities. And what I will say is that the national trend at the moment is for leisure recovery is sitting about 60 to 70%. Within our sports facilities, we're at 89%, so we're doing pretty well in terms of the national picture. So the 61% for the pool is disappointing, but the 150% for the outdoor facilities is really, really strong and promising. We had also in the previous report discussed the opportunity or the possibility of a management arrangement for Vision's Leisure Centre. However, since that report was discussed at the previous cabinet meeting, Vision's Leisure Centre have done a bit of work around the centre itself. They've recruited new board members, they've had a bit of investment in centre, and they've started developing their services. So they'll continue to manage that facility themselves. However, they will be invited to participate in the strategic partnership group, and we are working with them on key initiatives such as our swimming programme. We both use Scottish Swimming now. We're going to be working with them on training our lifeguards and our swim teachers. So there's a lot of collaboration that we're going to be doing with Visions going forward. It is anticipated that the first partnership meeting will take place in the spring of 2022. The reason why we've delayed that is just to give everybody a chance to recover, set themselves back up before we start talking about strategic planning. So we will take that forward in partnership with Education and Environment Communities in the spring of next year. So if I take you back to the options then for Auchinleck Leisure Centre, which are outlined in the financial implications from section 19 onwards, we are proposing two options, or we've explored two options. The first one is to keep the whole facility as a standalone leisure centre. This would include the demolition of the school, the upgrade of the mechanical installations, including a new plant room, car parking, landscaping and fencing. The indicative cost for this is £4.5 million. However, £1.1 million has already been identified within the capital programme for demolition of the school, so the additional costs are in the region of £3.4 million. And I've separated them out a bit within section 19 of the report. Option 2 would be for the closure and demolition of the Auchinleck Leisure Centre, but then respond to how well the outdoor sports facilities are recovering and create an outdoor sport academy in that area, replacing the Red Blaze pitch, improving the car parking and fencing, and the indicative costs for that are just under 1.9 million. And again, the 1.1 for demolition of the school would need to come off of that figure. We then looked at the revenue costs. For option 1, the revenue costs are anticipated to be just over £400,000. Now that's based on the existing running costs, which obviously include the school. So we do think that that can come down. We think that whilst the pool is the most expensive, some of the facility costs could be reduced. So we've given an allocation of about 25%. We also think there's a possibility of a reduction in non-domestic rates because the building will be smaller and have a different function. So we still believe that the annual revenue costs would be just over £300,000 for the standalone facility. The revenue costs for option 2 would be about £44,000 a year. The other point, just for noting, is that paragraph 3 is that we are doing a synthetic grass pitch renewal programme. Rose Riley was replaced last year. It's fantastic, but we do need to do that in a rolling 10-year programme. So the one at Auchinleck is scheduled for replacement in 2030, and there is an approximate cost associated with that. So based on the cost analysis, it's our recommendation that we replace Auchinleck Leisure Centre with Auchinleck Outdoor Sports Academy. We have, in the background, been working on an exit strategy should this decision be taken. We believe that we can relocate most of our users. There's a couple of user groups that we still need to do a lot of work with to make sure that we get an alternative facility that suits them. We believe we can redeploy all the staff that we have in there, and we think we can put in temporary arrangements until the new changing facilities are installed. And at section 25, it just looks at the additional costs for every month that we remain open as is. So in conclusion, you know, the facilities in the whole area are fantastic. It's a really exciting opportunity to develop this place-based approach and this strategic partnership, making sure that we don't duplicate, we don't compete, we work together. Everything that we pointed out within the leisure strategy is important to us. We need to support community groups and clubs. And so this is our first place-based approach and strategic partnership. And so it's an exciting opportunity to really get community involvement, get volunteering, looking at our sporting pathways, doing some innovative programming in some of our venues, and making sure that all of the venues that we operate in that area all work together and that they support the community facilities too. So I'm happy to take questions on that report.
Thanks, Annika. I've got Claire, Jim Roberts. Claire Leach.
That's great. Thank you very much for that, Chair. Annika, I think there's no denying how unbelievably amazing the Auchinleck Outdoor Sports Academy sounds and would be for Auchinleck. I'm a councillor for Auchinleck. I'm a proud Auchinleck lassie through and through. Ken, I suppose talking about the pool, I've got amazing memories of the Auchinleck pool. It's where I learned to swim. It's where my pals went at the weekend and we had a good time. And, you know, but see, putting all that nostalgic stuff aside and looking at Auchinleck as a whole, the pool would be a sore loss for Auchinleck. I do completely appreciate that we're saying there's a 61% reduction in use of the pool. However, I do wonder how well marketed it was in terms of the pool reopening. See, getting the agenda and hearing about this, I've been talking to residents in Auchinleck who tell me they have absolutely no idea that the pool had reopened since COVID, that they were under the impression that it was only the sports pitches open. So I suppose my question is how was it marketed that the pool was reopened? Because people I'm speaking to don't seem to know that it was. And I suppose what I'm trying to say is I wonder what the percentage of the uptake of the pool would be if the people in residence of Auchinleck did know it was open, because unfortunately, Annika, that's not what I'm hearing.
Okay, if I go through a few things with that one, then we developed a reactivation plan for every single one of our venues as we opened up. The same reactivation plan, and that included a communications and marketing plan. That same plan was in place for Auchinleck as it was for all of our other venues. So that was the case there. So we did do a campaign on the reopening. What I will say is, though, the Auchinleck Leisure Centre has never had public swims in it because it is so full with swimming programmes and with club use. It's never had public swim times pre-COVID. When we reopened, some of the clubs, the swimming clubs, didn't come back. In fact, one of them folded before COVID hit us. So we had some space. So we've tried to put in some public swim times in there, and we promote those through our Facebook pages, through all the usual communication points. And they're still not busy, those public swim times. And this is the first time we've ever introduced public swims at Auchinleck in the last couple of months.
Through you, Chair, thanks for that response, Annika. You know, talking to people who I had been asking if they know the pool's open, you know, they seem to be, you know, I'd be sure they'd be quite willing to use the pool, or, you know, they were surprised to hear about the pool in general. So I suppose it's just my observation, you know, but thank you for that.
Thanks. Tom, then Jackie.
Thanks, Chair. First of all, thanks, Annika, for spending time with me going through this report the other day, just to make me, you know, more acquainted with it. I've just got a couple of questions that I've followed on since then. One is just in relation to the survey that you carried out of the resident. Was that an online survey, or was that actually, you know, a paper survey that was put through people's doors? And that's the first question. The second question is in relation to the revenue costs. What about will the income offset these revenue costs, or is that the overall cost after we've taken off the income?
Okay, in terms of the engagement, we did 3 engagement sessions with people. So it wasn't in the room, it was face to face on a platform like this, with key user groups, and also with other organisations who run leisure facilities in the area, but don't necessarily use our facilities. The other questionnaire was an online survey that was distributed. It wasn't a paper through the door. And then in terms of the revenue costs, the figures within the paper are net of income, so that includes income.
Thanks for clearing that up, Annika. Thank you.
Jackie.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In part, maybe just to echo some of what Councillor Leach and Councillor Cook said, actually, I've got some concerns, Annika, about affordability for people, particularly not just Knockanleck, Cartron and the surrounding area, because if they have to, if they have to go to Cumnock or Kilmarnock, it adds on extra cost for them. Not to mention, right, which is no your fault by any means, but if they don't have transport, public transport's for great either, accessibility, so that's slightly concerning to me. Regarding marketing, I'd have to say that like Councillor Leach, I too have been approached by people from Auchinleck stating that they weren't aware of this and that they didn't know that the pool had opened up again. So possibly in line with what Councillor Cook said, I wonder if there might be scope to do a further information and awareness type marketing ad. I wonder if there's maybe scope to contact through schools and engage with the kids what they would like to do. I also wonder, based on what you said, if now there would be opportunity possibly, now that COVID, hopefully, it's not really moving, but you know what I mean, we're kind of societally moving towards more normality. So I wonder if there's opportunity for new swimming groups to be established, as well as to expand and enhance public swimming, because public swimming in Auchinleck was something previously that just wasn't available. So a lot of us, me included, didn't know that I could go. I would be over the moon if I could go for a swim at Auchinleck. So thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. Jim.
Thanks, Chair. Annika, the community engagement took place from about Auchinleck, the Leisure Centre, between February and May. That was just getting really into COVID at that time. I don't know whether maybe folks be distracted. I dare say they would be, and maybe consultations might not have been uppermost in their thoughts. I think there is an opportunity to market Auchinleck pool. I think there's also opportunities again to have that community engagement on a wider scale now that we're coming out in COVID. We're looking at the place-based partnership working. I think potentially Auchinleck Leisure Centre as it stands could be within that. But as far as costs and running costs go, this might even be, I might be looking for this in too quick, as a core demonstrator project to reduce energy consumption within there. So I think there's still opportunities. I'd probably like to see that consultation period extended now that we are on this part of recovery, and I think it's vital that we recognise that it's a recovery and we're still taking place. That's the word, right in the midst of that recovery. So I'd like to see the consultation extended again. I'd like to see possibly looking at a core demonstrator project, and that's sitting currently where it sits, potentially geothermals right below it that could help us. So that would be my view on it. But I think as that wider place-based partnership goes, I think there's potential for Auchinleck Pool and the Leisure, the wider leisure centre to be within that. Certainly the rest of it, I'm all way and comply with. I look forward to the upgrading of the car parks and the new grass pitch and the Blaze. I still bear the scars yet of the Blaze part, so I can the impact they can have on you. So that's just some views on it, Annika.
Thanks, Jim. Just maybe hearing what's been said. I think in terms of in terms it's a good report, and in terms of the place-based leisure partnership group and recommendation 2 and recommendation 3, the capital package of improvements would be really welcome. But I'm just wondering, I'm hearing them in terms of consultation and the possibility, and I know it's been discussed elsewhere, but using the core project and the core project as a demonstrator, because once was discussed about using this area as part of that, bringing some of the public benefit of that back into it. And I'm wondering, you know, the overwhelming thing for me though is that the costs are running, the revenue costs are at 300 to 400,000, which is quite a staggering figure. You know, so there would have to be some kind of reducing that figure significantly. Perhaps there is a way through the core demonstrator project I've been able to achieve in reducing the energy costs, and maybe that's worth an investigation over a period of time, and at that time we could continue with the consultation process. I'm not sure if that can be done, but the figures, the actual money that we're is a staggering amount of money. But there's maybe an opportunity here in terms of the core demonstrator that's been, you know, what better way to help the public in terms of their well-being as if the energy costs can be offset by new green technology. It's maybe worth considering over a short period of time. I see Jim Roberts has wanted to come in as well, Jim.
Yeah, thanks very much, Dougie. I'm having serious problems this morning with my connection dropping out. I'm sitting right next to the router, but it's still dropping out. If I'm repeating myself in regard to what other people have said, then I apologise. When I came into council in 2007, I distinctly remember there was 2 wind turbines sat at Auchinleck Academy. They've been taken away. I don't know why they were taken away. There'll be an explanation, no doubt. But going back about 7-8 years ago, we spent the best part of £1 million on this facility. There was quite a lot of work done. There was also a new air handling unit put in, and then about 4 years ago, the pool was drained and it was partially grouted. I think it would be a real shame if this facility was compromised. But I think in regard to going forward, I mean, Annika hasn't pulled any punches with respect to her report. But I think you're right, Dougie, you know, in terms of I was going to say the MERD project, but it's a core project. And that site, you know, has been earmarked for certain, you know, certain projects up there. So if we're promoting the core project, then you've got an opportunity there, and that links into your carbon neutral aspirations, etc. With the swimming pool as part of that initiative. We can be looking at renewables, yes, wind, which there was there before, ground source heat pumps, and also geothermal as well. So there's no reason why we can't be looking objectively at that and linking into the aspirations of the core project. But with respect to the costs, I mean, you've highlighted the costs, indicative costs of £4.5 million to separate the leisure centre to school. £1 million demolition, I get that. And £3.4 million to separate mechanical and engineering services, 1.13, and building component upgrades. I'm not really sure how that's broken down. I don't know if there's somebody there that can elaborate on these costings. But, you know, I think we need to do a bit more work on this. I think it'd be a real shame. And it's not until there is a threat for a loss of a community facility that people actually start to, I hope will forgive me, is wake up. But, you know, we are in a situation going forward where every penny is a prisoner. I would like for us to explore every possible avenue in regard to keeping this facility open. There is an opportunity for investment into it, but that would need to be qualified and quantified as we go forward. But I would tend to agree with you, Dougie, in regard to the aspirations going forward for this. It does need a bit more work, and I would support a bit more work going forward. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. I'll maybe bring in Andrew before I bring in. I'll bring in Neil, then I'll bring in Andrew. Neil.
Thanks, Chair. Obviously, as a 50-year resident of Auchinleck, I hate to lose any facilities in the pool in particular. However, I know its history. Sadly, that pool was never really available to the community or acknowledged by the community. It was extracurricular usage, even if they managed that, and I used to attend it. But the supporting act was the 2 swimming clubs, which are new, as you've heard from Annika, have now disappeared. Now, I want to declare right now, I'd be happy if there's an opportunity to find out alternatives and that can diminish the likelihood of this getting demolished. But there's also a swimming pool a mile and a half away that also needs support, and I just wonder, that's not been mentioned, and I think it should be in the discussion point. But can I get clarity, Annika, on if the swimming pool remains, would the improvements to the sports facility go ahead or not?
I'm sorry if I missed any questions. I dropped out there. That's me just back in. So just hearing Neil's comments there. No, the improvements to the sports facilities will go ahead regardless. If that was your question.
I wasn't aware of that. That's a plus. But I'm happy to, as I said, to listen to any arguments, financial and otherwise, that would keep this open if it makes sense. It's never made sense for the community, and I don't know how many people. I've not had any concerns about it, but that's not to say they're a bit apathetic, nothing like. But that doesn't stop it being further inquiries, so I'd be up for that. But my tendency would be at this moment in time, that there's no value in it, no real value in it. But and as I say, if you add visions to that argument, then there's even less value. But happy to hear any discussion points and further marketing that can be done. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Neil. No, I agree with what you're saying there, Neil, as well. I think on balance, it looks as if we need a wee bit of time. I think we need to establish these groups and go forward. The costs, the revenue costs and the capital costs are phenomenal here. So there would have to be significant justification from the core project demonstrator, but that's not to say that we don't look at it. And we maybe take a bit of time to do that and come back. Katie, then Andrew.
Sorry, through you, Chair. Might be better to bring Andrew in first about the cost, and then I'm just going to suggest a way forward. So,
Andrew.
Thanks, through you, Chair. Probably just a couple of points in terms of the buildings first off before we get into the detail of the costs. As obviously as everybody's mentioned there, just in terms of operationally, the pool's been an integral part of the school, but physically in terms of the building and all of the services and utilities of that building, it is also an integrated part basically of the facilities. So the existing heating, the fire alarm, all of the security systems, the water supply, all of those are integrated into the main building, and a number of them are actually controlled from other parts of the building. So that's probably one of the fundamental elements of anything we do in terms of retaining this facility, is making sure that we can separate those things and put in alternative arrangements. And that's obviously where a significant part of that cost that's been identified comes from. The second part, which Councillor Roberts kind of was highlighting there, was around the component renewal elements. As we do with every building, there is a programme of works that we would require to do. Some of them we can do in a phased basis. Some of them we can do kind of together. What we've obviously done is looked at over the next 5 to 10 years, what would be the types of things that would need to be done on this building. And that would be things like replacing the roof, further work in terms of the tiles, etc. within the pool, plus things like the gym hall floors and things like that, and upgrades of toilets, etc. So all of those elements have been included within this budget in terms of the total cost. So some of that could be delayed over a period of time, but clearly within the two options that are presented, there's a significant cost in terms of the building and maintaining the building and continuing to operate that building over a period of time. Clearly, if the option one was taken, then we would look to try and invest as much of that as possible early on, so as we would then maximise the operational availability of those facilities going forward. Hopefully that kind of outlines a wee bit clearer in terms of how those costs are built up. Happy to take other questions.
No, I think that's really helpful, Andrew. Katie.
Yeah, thanks to you, Chair. You know, just given what members have said, you know, that we could go offline now and prepare a further paper for Cabinet, looking at feasibility around core and some further engagement, given what some of the members have raised, that, you know, what they're hearing in the streets. But there will be an indicative cost for that delay, you know, and if we took some time over this, obviously with the core, we're still very much in its infancy in terms of the remit of that. We would need to take some time around feasibility and bring that back to you. So it could be up to 6 months to get that, but you know, it's just to make members aware that we would incur a number of costs here. You know, it could be well over up to £250,000 by just, you know, delaying this whilst we bring more information back to you. So, you know, officers could work together across services and with East Ayrshire Leisure to look at further feasibility and to you know, go in a bit more depth, but there would be a cost to us doing that. And I think it's important just to raise that and with you, Chair.
Thanks, and I think, you know, Katie, Deputy Chief Exec, is absolutely right to raise, you know, that awareness. I think, you know, 6 months would be optimistic, just given the cycle. Obviously, we would be hitting an election just then, and I think realistically it would likely be after recess, you know, like next year before we would be coming back. So we would be up round about an annual, you know, running cost to bring this back. But anything we bring back, I think, you know, people have reflected, has to look at that whole community, has to look at need in that whole community first. So let's part the cost, first of all, what's the right facilities for the local community, and then link that to best value in terms of the costs there as well. If we could find a way, you know, through the core project to reduce heating costs in swimming pools, I think that would be an excellent thing for us to do, and something we would maybe want to, you know, market, to be quite honest. But, you know, it's one of the things that we would take up on board, you know, like whatever members decide, you know, today in relation to that. And again, hearing Annika saying that within that overall plan, the plan for outdoor space remains no matter what we do, I think should also give reassurance. This is not about threatening that if you don't do the whole thing, you lose a bit here. That the outdoor space goes ahead no matter what we're doing here.
And as I said earlier, I think establishing these boards is really helpful. Tom? Come on, Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to come back again. I mean, to me, you know, there's two issues. There's £3.5 million that needs to be spent in capital expenditure. And, you know, budgets, as we know, are under real pressure. So before we spent that, we want to make sure that we were actually going to be building or keeping something that people are going to use. And I know, you know, we can do another survey, but I always find there's a difference when you ask people, you know, should it remain? And then the question is, will you actually use it? And then do they use it? And I think there's always a disconnect between that. Everybody wants it to stay there, but the number of people at the end of the day who actually use the facility tends to be a lot less. So perhaps a short delay to do you know, a bit more consultation and see if there's swimming groups. But I think to, you know, put the whole thing on hold for 6 months or even a year, as Eddie was saying, during that time we're going to incur costs, security costs, maintaining the existing facility. So I think we have to be very careful on this one, and, you know, I wouldn't want to, you know, delay it very much longer, making a decision on
it. Jim Roberts.
Thanks very much, Chair. I'm still having problems with my laptop. I'm just a message through the IT. I missed the start of the meeting for a dental appointment, and that juncture I should have declared, or I would have declared, a conflict of interest. I'm a member of Kilmarnock Tobacco Club, and we actually use, on occasion, Auchinleck Pool. I don't see it as a significant interest, but I would have advocated that I would have stood, or I would have taken part in the discussion anyway. So if my interest could be recorded at this juncture, that'd be great. So I apologise to members and the Chief Executive.
Okay, Jackie.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In line with what's been said, I was taking on board what Councillor Cook was saying, and I concur to an extent. I wonder, however, if what's also required, as well as a further consultation, is also a focused advertising campaign showing what it does and what's there, so that we can gauge it. Just based on the fact, Annika, that both myself and Councillor Leach had people approach that they didn't know, right? So maybe if we could do another kind of focused advertisement type thing, saying here they are, and then it would maybe give us a truer reflection of what the community requires.
Thanks, Jackie. Claire?
Aye, that's yeah. I think just to echo exactly what Jackie said as well, to give folk the opportunity to get like a really targeted campaign out there. I do think we need to give folk the chance. Ken, it would be a sale loss, but see at the end of the day, if the uptake's no taken, we're going to come back here and we'll discuss it again. But I do think that the opportunity does need to be given to Auchinleck. It's an amazing facility to have. And the fact that you know, it is open to the public now, that's great. Annika, I think we should bring back the weekend fun swims for when I was away, because it was a great fun.
Absolutely, but you know, it is a great facility, but in balance there's an issue of affordability, and it's just got to be bridged, and we can't hide for that. But I think Katie suggests a way around about that. Eddie, you want to come in?
So I suppose it's just a bit clarity about what recommendations we're taking, you know, look forward then, Chair. So I'm assuming that, you know, Cabinet is all in agreement in terms of recommendation 2, in terms of our leisure trust and vibrant communities establishing the place-based, you know, leisure partnership group. Everything I've heard is people talking about a positive, you know, engagement in terms of what we're doing there. We've heard, you know, that input from Andrew about the detail of what's required, and I suppose that would be a bit of detail coming back to us the next time in terms of what's required in terms of that breakdown of the capital sums, because clearly there's significant capital sums that we need to be invested if we're coming back there. And in terms of recommendation 1, I'm hearing that members would wish to defer that recommendation, you know, for a period of time, that what they would want to do is look at a campaign in terms of uptake, in terms of the facility, to do a piece of work in terms of, you know, like the need for the services and looking at the use of the service over that period of time. We would then come back in terms of base value in doing that. Part of that base value would also be looking at whether we could offset the costs with anything in terms of the core project in terms of renewables, and we would draw all that together in terms of bringing that piece of work back. But Katie's saying we would try and do that piece of work within about a 6-month period of time, but I just think with the committee cycles, etc., and get into, you know, a local government election, etc., the possibility is that it might be next August or so before we're actually able to report back to you. So if members are in agreement in terms of that summary, I'm sure we could take it on from there. I just check with David as well. Is that?
I wasn't going to say, in terms of Eddie's summary of where the Cabinet consideration of this is at, then that seems to reflect the discussion. I suppose the one point that Cabinet needs to be absolutely clear on before you go down that route, and I'm just going back to the answer that Annika gave. My understanding, and I'm only going with what we've heard today, but my understanding is that there hasn't been the capacity for public use of the pool either pre-COVID or since we opened it up. What Annika said was the usage, and the reference to 61% uptake is usage by groups. Now, if the decision of Cabinet is to go back out to consultation to see about broadening out that use and having public swims, which was a distinction that was made, I think before we did that, you would need to know that the pool has the capacity to open up to public swims once you've allowed for the group use, because presumably there's a capacity issue, and this plays out in every swimming pool in the land where you want to go down and swim and you can't because it's blocked for lessons or blocked for this, blocked for that. So the fundamental point would be for Cabinet to be clear from colleagues that before we go out and consult on changing the use of the pool and bringing in that public element in order to see an overall increase in usage, that there is that capacity to accommodate the public lessons. Otherwise, you'd be setting yourself up to fail if we invite that response of, yes, we'd like public lessons, but we still don't have the capacity to accommodate them. So to me, there's an operational question before you set off on that course. But if that's the course you set off on, then yeah, I agree with Eddie in terms of the summary of that and the impact on the recommendations.
Annika, sorry.
Yeah, thanks. Just to respond to that, David's absolutely right. Pre-COVID, we didn't have any public swims because we didn't have the capacity for it, because there were a number of community swimming clubs and our own swimming programme in there, so we had no space for public swims. However, since we've reopened the two community swimming clubs, one of them is disbanded and the other one's not come back, and we've been able to put on some public swimming, limited, but some public swim times. But I'm not sure if that will continue if we go on, because as you rightly say, we might not have the capacity for it.
Okay. Okay, in terms of
So just, I mean, clearly in terms of the scope of the piece of work that the officer has been asked to do, we need to absolutely include that in terms of the scope of the work that we're taking forward.
Okay, so I would be moving it as recommendations set out, Eddie referred to, taking the remits, taking them first and further remitting the officers consider the marketing and the core demonstrator project issues that have been referred to, and bringing that back with.
Sorry, through you, Chair, we would also ask, the Chief Finance Officer to bring back to a future Cabinet the financial implications and how that flows through in respect to this.
Absolutely, that's fine. Okay, over to August next. 22. Okay. Any otherwise minded? No. Okay, it's 14 minutes past. Can we take maybe a wee recess to when? 1/2 or 25 past? 1/2 to everybody. Right, good. Okay, is everybody back?
Okay.
Just go. Okay, next item is the community asset transfer request for land at Stewart and Cross and Cumnock Rugby Club. And Craig Fulton is going to introduce it. Craig, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. The purpose of this report is to make a recommendation to Cabinet for the lease of land at the Cross and Stewarton and a sale of land which borders Cumnock Rugby.
You went on mute, Craig.
Apologies, Chair. Thank you. Good afternoon, members. The purpose of the report is to make a recommendation to Cabinet for the lease of land at the Cross and Stewarton and a sale of land which borders Cumnock Rugby Club through the Community Asset Transfer Framework. Recommendations for the paper are set out in paragraph 2 with the background for the Community Asset Transfer in paragraphs 3 to 5. In terms of the Stewarton Cross, the applicant organisation is Stewarton Initiatives, who are a charity formed following the establishment of the first community-led action plan within Stewarton. The charity have been actively trying to complete the priorities within the plan for their community, and the lease of this land will allow them to develop a community hub in the centre of the village. I would ask members to note in paragraph 7, which indicates the progress towards the charity for the funding they require, that the paper states Stewarton Initiatives Renewable Energy Fund application will go forward in Grants Committee in November. However, conversations with Democratic Services this morning indicate the application is not quite ready for assessment and will now be considered early in 2022. The second request is from Cumnock Rugby Club for land which borders both the Rugby Club and Visions Leisure Centre. The land is protected open green space, which the club will use as a training ground for their mini rugby section. The approval of this asset transfer would meet the outlined agreements made between East Ayrshire Council and Cumnock Rugby Club in the planning stages for the Barony campus. The proposed lease of the land at Stewarton Cross is for £1 per annum, given that the area of land is under 1 acre and to be used as a public amenity. Paragraph 14 indicates that the market value of the land which borders Cumnock Rugby Club is £850, and given that the CAP framework indicates that assets are disposed at 10% of market value, the proposed sale of the land to Cumnock Rugby Club is for £85. That's the end of the paper. Members happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Craig. Any questions there for Craig there? I think it's quite straightforward. You're getting off easy, Craig. Okay. Thanks for that. Can we just maybe go straight to recommendations? And can we agree the recommendations? Okay, that's great. Okay, now we go to the strategic framework for economic renewal and community-led regeneration activity. And over to David.
Chair, I'll provide a summary of the joint paper from Housing and Communities and Economic Growth to set out the strategic framework and proposals for taking forward our work around economic renewal and community-led regeneration activities within the council area. The report also seeks approval to make permanent the community-led regeneration team, recognising the long-term nature of this activity while highlighting the proposals to explore a multidisciplinary and collaborative approach to the coordination of external funding bids, such as we're currently experiencing with the Levelling Up Fund. Paragraph 47 sets out the community plan, a strategic framework to support the community-led regeneration, supported by the investment from the Ayrshire Growth Deal and the Caring for Ayrshire Transformational Change Programme, all to maximise their impact and benefit to our local communities. Our foundations for the community-led regeneration are embedded within the community-led action plans and placemaking plans. Community-led regeneration has also assisted in the Council to deliver on its transformational agenda and is key to the development of the new local development plan, which promotes inclusive growth agenda linked into the Ayrshire Growth Deal. Recognising the linkages between the community-led regeneration and economic development, a community-led regeneration team was established in 2019 to support and build capacity within the business and retail sector, delivering a number of projects to mitigate against the impacts of COVID-19 and associated lockdown restrictions. Paragraphs 8 to 9 sets out the outcome of the Council's review of the management structure and establishment of the Economic Growth Service, as we heard earlier this morning. As you will see from the Service Improvement Plan, the establishment of the new Economic Growth Service provides an opportunity to reconsider the position of the community-led regeneration team and specifically to align them more closely with the wider economic development and community building objectives. These issues will be considered more fully within the service redesigns taking place across housing and communities and the economic growth during this financial year. Paragraphs 10 to 29 set out the well-rehearsed strategic drivers for economic recovery. These range from the Council Strategic Transformation and Operational Renewal and Recovery Plan to the 4 catalyst projects within the Ayrshire Growth Deal at Halo, the Core, AMIC and the Muirfield Engineering Park. As highlighted earlier, the integration of the 6 community wealth building pillars to focus on well-being and inclusion while promoting local spend. Paragraph 23 highlights community-led regeneration priority with the development of 25 community-led action plans, the approval of 55 community asset transfers and supporting 16 community ladders as well as the capital investment via projects such as the CARS scheme in Mauchline and the Regeneration Capital Grant Fund. And finally, the development of the Local Development Plan 2, setting out the land use opportunities which will be supported by the review of the town centre constraints and the development of the Kilmarnock placemaking, as mentioned earlier under the Service Improvement Plan, all to support inward investment while supporting the Council's recovery and renewal priorities within the capital plan. Paragraphs 30 to 41 set out the local drivers and opportunities which arise through the clarity from the community-led action plans and services working collaboratively together on a wide range of projects to achieve within the sphere of funding programmes which assist in the delivery of local regeneration. I'll now pass over to Bob McCulloch to take through the second part of the report from his service perspective.
Thank you, David. Through you, Chair, I will now take you through the remainder of the report. Paragraphs 42 through 43 detail the current arrangements and achievements of the community-led team. You will note from para 42 that there are 4 officers in the team, which include the strategic lead. This team supports our local communities and businesses and helps raise the profiles of our towns and villages, working closely with partners and community groups. Para 43 details some of that important work with the delivery of projects which include car parks, public realm upgrades, purchase of land, etc., all of which have had a positive impact. Other works include the development of a gift card and members will be aware of how successful this has been, including using it to support our communities through the pandemic. This work has been recognised nationally, with others using the East Ayrshire model as a template. Shop Happy and Love Local are other initiatives the team have worked to successfully introduce to our communities, thus supporting our businesses during a very difficult time. Chair, paragraphs 44 through 52 looks at the proposed changes to the current arrangements for this team. Members agreed at Cabinet in September 2020 to appoint a strategic lead for community regeneration on a temporary basis, and that the responsibility for the service transferred to housing and communities at that time. The other 3 officers from the team were in fixed term arrangements until the end of March 2022. Members also agreed to remit to the strategic lead to undertake a review of the team and report back to a future Cabinet. Chair, para 47 details that as we come towards the end of the fixed term contracts for the team, that decision needs to be taken to secure the future of the community-led team to ensure continuity of support for our towns, villages, businesses, partners and groups. We are all aware of the impacts of COVID-19 has had on businesses and our communities, and it is against this backdrop and the additional funding offered by the Scottish Government and National Government that it's clear that there is a need for the community-led team to continue their good work and ensure that there is a suitable and sustainable resource in place going forward. It is therefore proposed that the community-led regeneration team is made permanent from the 1st of April 2022. Heads of service will consider the roles and responsibilities of the team as part of their future service redesigns and will report back to Cabinet before the end of March 2022. Community planning and transformation are as stated in para 53, with human resource implications at 54. Again, Chair, the ask is for the community-led team post to be made permanent from the 1st of April 2022, with a further request that the Town Centre Regeneration Officer Business and Retail post, which is currently 20 hours per week, be increased to 35 hours per week. This is to meet demand and further support to our communities and businesses. And Chair, Table 1 below shows the current structure, with Tables 2 showing the proposed structure along with costs. Para 55 details that there will be an additional cost of £170,000 along with the existing core budget of £45,000 already accounted for. It is proposed that this additional costs are included in the preparation for the 22-23 budget. Chair, para 56 and 57 sets out the risk, equalities and legal implications, with particular attention to the risk element in that to not extend the team to allow them to continue their support work would leave a significant gap of resource at a time when our communities most need it, as they attempt to recover and deliver local recovery and regeneration projects. A failure to provide local support and assistance may also result in reputational damage to the Council. Chair, as stated earlier, the work of the team is closely linked to the delivery of local and national funded projects for our towns and villages and provide the necessary links for all Council services. Chair, the recommendations are set out in paragraph 3, and David and myself would be happy to take any questions with Dot here to support. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Bob and David, in a joint paper here. I think it's an excellent paper. I think one thing the pandemic showed is just kind of accelerated some of the issues in terms of people's changes in terms of their retail habits and, you know, their appreciation of leisure facilities and open green space, and the way, you know, the important role that town centres have in terms of our well-being. And I think very much so with a number of initiatives that we're taking in terms of community wealth building, the Ayrshire growth deal, and just generally supporting local businesses and helping them to recover. I think this is really necessary part of that regeneration and part of the sustained economic growth in the future. Not just the big towns like Kilmarnock and Cumnock and Stewarton, but all the towns right across East Ayrshire. And I think this will help considerably, as well as other things, you know, that are coming in like vacant land and just how we see our communities. And it's important that we pay real attention because I think that to these things, because I think that's expected by the public, but it's the right thing to do here, and that's responding very quickly to an issue that we really need to pay attention to. So any other comments there? I've got Claire Maitland and Jim Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I welcome the paper, and I'm glad to see that the regeneration team are going to carry on with their good work. I know that they work with the retailers and with the businesses and with the communities, but I have a question actually, and it's about landlords and absentee landlords. Because of the way we do business here, with full insurance and repairing leases going towards the leasee of any of the premises, you'll often find that you have a sign up to let, but the state of the building, especially the gutters, the outside, the growth, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon and many of our town centres. Now, these aren't buildings that the council own. So I'd like to know what we're doing to work with local landlords, but also, more importantly, the absentee landlords that have so much to do with the image of our town. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. I know that we have dedicated staff that were working in the housing empty properties that are now focusing on commercial properties. I don't know who can do it.
Through your chair, I think it definitely is an issue for a lot of our towns and villages, and I think through my own team and also the work of the empty homes and Liz King, they have been engaging with local landlords to try and improve the facilities and also look at any opportunities that are for funding. But it is a real challenge as we go forward, and I think it's working with colleagues across the services. We will continue to engage and in a positive way to try and encourage people to take care of their buildings. We have tried to support them through the removal of Budlia, which is featuring quite a bit. So we have taken action through some funding streams to do that with owners' permissions, but I think it's going to be an ongoing issue and one that we will work with colleagues on.
Thanks, Dot. I mean, I don't know if Bob wants to come in here, but we did have an issue that's in terms of weed control over the summer months. I know that staff have been dealing with it latterly, but it was just during COVID, it was a matter of priorities. But I know that that's getting some attention now. Bob.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Dot. Absolutely. And things like weed control, the Budlia that Dot talked, can severely impact on the perception of a town. We, through our colleagues in ARA, we've been working with them to undertake the weed control and a town centre clean-up in most of our town centres and villages as we start to recover from the COVID pandemic and get better at that. We also, as Dot says, we have within house and we have monies that absent landlords that we can work with and see what we can do. Predominantly that's for inside, but we can look at other aspects of that in terms of Councillor Maitland's question, and we'll use everything. The benefits of bringing this team, this is supporting and in addition to the wider Vibrant Communities team. So it's 4 people here, but it's actually a bigger team, so we can start to target the areas that Councillor Maitland has raised and hopefully regenerate and make better our town centre and villages, Chair.
Thanks, Bob. Claire, you want back in?
Yes, Chair, thank you. I think it's possibly something that we need to look at maybe at Scottish Government level. There is no incentive for landlords at the moment to look after their buildings. The incentive goes on to the person who wants to lease the building, and it then becomes their repair. Now, if you're talking about small business, you're talking about an awful lot of money to maintain, especially in some of our town centres, very, very old buildings. I can give an example, like, why would somebody put in a central heating system when the landlord would actually benefit from that as opposed to the business? They also have the rule of you have to put the building back to the condition it was in before you got it. So even if you make repairs to it, you actually have to take the repairs out if the landlord tells you to do that. So I think this is an issue that perhaps the public aren't aware of. We often get the blame as a council for the state of some of the buildings in our town centres, and it's not our problem. And I think we need more tools to tackle this. So I would like to see us maybe take it to a Scottish Government level. That it's a licence to print money for landlords, and often that money ends up in offshore pension pots, or sorry, investment pots. And where's the incentive for the little businesses to take something on when they have to take on the risk? And there's often minimum of 3-year leases, although I understand that because of the economy that has changed. So sorry if that was long-winded, but I think it's something that people are unaware of, and I think the public should be made aware of it and how limited we are and what we can do. Thank you.
That's clear. Jim Roberts.
Thanks very much, Chair. In regard to the team and the remit, my understanding is that the remit of this team is going to be changing, bearing in mind what they're going to be asked to do. But in regard to other town centres and villages, you know, I think that we've got to be aspirational and look for changes there as well. Not necessarily just in Kilmarnock and Cumnock, and I mean no disrespect when I say that. But I think we need to have realistic targets in terms of what we're going to do. But my question is how we're going to measure the outcomes in regard to what we've actually done, so that we can measure how successful or otherwise it has actually been. And my other question revolves around paragraph 44. We've got some temporary staff in there, and in 2022 that's going to be made permanent. So in regard to the recruitment process for the senior position, I take it that's going to go open to open recruitment process, where it's open to all who would wish to express an interest in that particular post. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Jim. Bob.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Roberts. I'll answer the position in terms of the future position. This will be a new post at that point, and it will be open for people to put in for. Hopefully that answers that one. That'll be an open interview process, and I'll pass to Dot to answer in terms of the outcomes. The next paper, the future paper, the place-based and the other town centre regeneration, there's clear outcomes and delivery that we have been successful in, and Dot will be better able to explain them along with the future processes that we are going to bring to Cabinet shortly, and how they'll benefit, as Councillor Roberts says, all the towns and villages of East Ayrshire. Thanks.
Through
yourself, Chair. In terms of the work of this team, it is very much an East Ayrshire-wide team, and working across all our towns and villages. And absolutely, we need to be accountable for the work that we're doing. In terms of the funding, the Town Centre Regeneration Fund and the place-based funding, which I'll speak about after, we have clear monitoring arrangements in place from the Scottish Government. As a team, we also carry out the same monitoring and performance management in relation to other services through our service improvement plan, and there are clear actions in there and our priorities. We work very closely with our communities, and the work that we spoke about earlier around place plans and community-led action plans, we will work closely with our communities, and they will be measured through those actions as well, and the work that we do.
Amanda, I'll let Amanda in first, then.
Thanks.
Jim.
Through you, Chair. Just to kind of follow up on Bob's point, I can just clarify that the post will be subject to an open advert and will be recruited through a recruitment and selection policy that's been agreed at Cabinet previously. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Amanda. And was it Jackie?
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to recognise the positive impact across all aspects of your communities that I think the team's had, and to extend my thanks to that, but also to highlight that there's going to be an ever-increasing ongoing need for the local authority to be able to provide responsive support that's innovative and divisive, and what, quite frankly, is going to be unknown waters ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. Jim, you want to come back in?
No, Chair, my question's been answered.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, other Jim.
Thanks, Chair. I think most of the points I was going to make has been covered, but I think it's vital, and it's been made clear to us that it incorporates all East Ayrshire. It's not just the bigger towns. To regenerate the bigger towns, we need to invigorate and raise the aspirations, the folk within the weir villages, and also the wee shops within them as well, and the businesses within them. I had the pleasure, I take it quite regularly, attending Cumnock Business Association meetings where one of our officers is there, and likewise more recently with the Chief Exec and David, and they know how much the officer is appreciated within that business community and the wider community within that. So just a couple of questions, and I recognise that innovative East Ayrshire gift card that we did start and has been followed on with the Scottish Government. Maybe a couple of an update on that and how it's progressing and the benefits to the wider community on that, and maybe we touch on the shop API as well as how it's progressing and the wider benefits for that.
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of the East Ayrshire gift card, this was presented originally to Cabinet in May 2020 and then officially launched in August that year, prior to the national rollout of the card, which is taking place through the Scottish Towns Partnership. To date, there's 186 businesses registered across East Ayrshire. This card was supported by the Christmas and Spring campaigns, and it has been well received from our businesses. This whole idea of the gift card is about locking money into the local economy. It touches on the community wealth building that we've spoken about today as well. And there's just over £250,000 between the campaigns and general sales of the cards that's been invested within our communities. I think the gift card, the particular aspects of the gift cards, and we'll remember last Christmas when a number of businesses folded and people lost their value of their gift cards. What this one does is actually lock the money into the local economy. It can be spent in any business. So you can spend, if you have a £20 gift card, £5 in one, £10 in another. It's not just solely locked into one, and that gives people a lot of flexibility to shop across East Ayrshire, and it's been well received by our businesses as well. It is also tied into the shop API, so if people want to buy online, they can use the gift card there as well. And just touching on the shop API, it was launched in November, and that was from funding that we got from the Scottish Towns Partnership, who was keen to look at how we could support local businesses during a very difficult time. To date, there are 92 businesses are live on the site, 21 are in the processes of going live, and engagement is taking place with a significant number of other businesses. We have been working closely with the Cumnock Business Association and Kilmarnock Business Association on this development, who are very supportive of these and can see the benefits for the business community. So much so, they have put in an application to the Love Local Fund, when hopefully this November we will hear whether they've been successful, because they want to take this and build on it for the local business community across East Ayrshire. So it's been very positive feedback. I think it's also important to note that this is not just about the shop API or the East Ayrshire gift card on their own. They're part of a wider support to our local businesses, and our local businesses see this as opportunities for people who may not have used their business before or know about their business to hear about it. And they fit it in with their own social media platforms as well. So it's certainly something that is not short term, and local businesses see it as something that will be thriving them as we go forward. And from what has been a very difficult time for them, has been well received.
Thanks. No, I went to a presentation recently with David. I think Eddie was there with the shop API, and it was actually a business owner for the Cumnock area that was addressing the Kilmarnock Business Association, and it was great to see those networks, you know, as all our high streets are uniting to take it on the big online guys, but using that applications like Shop API could show or showcase what all the shops that we've got right across East Ayrshire have got for sale right to people's laptops. And it's a high street striking back, and that's good to see. And you know, due to the work of our officers, that was those networks are happening, and that's good to see for the economic well-being of our communities. John, then Tom. John.
Hi, thanks to most of the questions I was going to ask have already been asked, but I just want to talk about the teaming itself. And I think paragraphs 50 to 52. I think what we're saying is that, Ken, this was a team that was maybe short-term or no permanent contracts, and they're not just, it's clearly stating the team's evolved, and it's not just focusing on Kilmarnock Town Centre, it's focusing across the whole East Ayrshire. So I think it's right, again, we're giving folk a permanent job, and it's a job that might evolve again, according to paragraph 52. Would that be correct?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor McGee. The answer to that question is yes, because as the team evolves and different opportunities come up for investment in East Ayrshire and how we can deliver that, then through the service redesign that David's considering and I'm considering for housing and communities, we'll bring forward possible new roles for that team. But you're absolutely right. Even beyond that, this team and every employee at East Ayrshire will evolve to deliver the services our communities need. Thanks.
Thanks very much. No, I mean, it's been really good to see it evolve, and it has brought businesses together and communities together. That's been one of the features I've noticed with it, and that's to be welcome. Tom, sorry.
Thanks, Chair. No, I was going to ask about the monitoring of the outcomes, but that's been answered earlier. I just want to go back to a point that I think you yourself made earlier, which is about local action plans and the Kilmarnock placemaking to make sure that the communities on the fringe of the town are included in this. It's not just people right in the town centre, but everybody around about. Whether it's Shortleys, Belfield, Grange, North Craig, South Craig, all come into the town centre, and we want to encourage them to come into the town centre. So we've just got to make sure that whatever we do involves these people to make sure that we're delivering what they want, as well as just looking purely at the people in the town centre.
No, that's absolutely right, and I think that's something we really need to address, and we are addressing. But Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Cook. Through you, Chair. In terms of this, that's where there's a real good working relationship between the work that Dot's doing within the community-led regeneration team and the work within my own portfolio through Vibrant Communities, and really marrying up that connectedness, linking back to what David's team is delivering through the placemaking exercises to ensure that we are connecting that up, and it goes wider than just the King Street or the town centre and Kilmarnock, that it goes to the wider periphery communities, and that those plans where we're working with our communities really marry up alongside the business community as well in the area. Back to the earlier point that you mentioned yourself, Chair, early on in the first report today, in that sense, there's that cohesion between the work of all three teams here, taking forward that collective agenda, working with our communities and business communities to make a difference.
Thanks, Kevin. Jim Roberts first.
Thanks very much, Chair. I may be wrong in saying this, but there's a lot some communities who have not yet developed a community-led action plan. And if that is the case, what are we doing about them? Are we putting some kind of priority on them, to help them develop a community-led action plan? Or is there specific obstacles